G'day guys and welcome to your English Aussie. We are live with the deadline stream for this week. I think it looks like it's probably about 8 a.m. over in England. It's around 7 o'clock here in Sydney. And we were going to kick off with giving you guys some press conference updates. We'll start with Man City and then we'll talk through sort of all the teams. We'll have a chat through team observations from game week 11, predictions for game week 12, thoughts about how the matches are going to go in this game week, and what we're likely to see across the various games. So we'll flick through those. We'll talk to potential wildcard team, my current team, and then maybe a bit of player analysis as well, and also some thoughts on captaincy. And then we will also throughout the time be answering you guys questions on your own teams or anything that you want answered. I'll make sure to try and answer every question in the chat today. All right, we've got a long stream ahead, so let's kick off with the press conference updates. So starting off with Man City, Guardiola's obviously signed the new 2-year deal for them, so great news for all City fans, probably terrible news for all other club fans. Another 2 years of City being good, unless they maybe get relegated with all the charges up against them. So news coming out of the press conference with Guardiola, he mentioned that Ake, Manuel Kanji and Stones were all training and potentially available for selection. He didn't comment on whether, well, he said that they might not be able to do 90 minutes, but they would be available to play some minutes. Kovacic was ruled out for between 3 weeks to a month, and Ruben Diaz was also noted as out. Probably thoughts on that means we saw last week, obviously, Guardiola playing a bit of centre back. I think Lewis was at left back, Walker was at right back. That's unlikely to be the case this week. I think Guardiola will go back to full back. Hopefully left back is obviously where he's more attacking. There is potential with Kovacic being out of either Lewis or Stones playing in that sort of defensive midfield role for City. So probably good news for any Lewis owners. But then again, you can obviously never tell how Pep's planning to set up that side. Yeah, Ake, Kanji and Stones all being back is good. It means that they sort of have some central defenders. It's likely that then Guardiola is going to be moved over to where he's most effective for attacking positioning at fullback. No other real updates from Pep regarding other players. Seems like everybody else is like all the players that were fit previously is still okay. Moving on to Arsenal, yeah, I sort of put up here a couple of interesting things because I thought at the time I saw some of this information and I thought it was kind of interesting to talk through. Arteta, in a previous press conference I was watching, just reviewing some of the stuff he'd done, and he was talking about injuries and mind games, and he says, I don't want to make it easy for anyone. The opponent has to make sure they do homework. I'm not going to lie to you. I wouldn't do that. But if I don't want to tell you, I'll keep you guessing. And I think he also went on to say in that conference, like, if they're injured and definitely out, I'll tell you. But if they're not, I'm going to keep you guessing, basically. And he's not going to sort of give anything away. So that sort of just plays into the sort of comments that we've been seeing all year on Arteta in press conferences, is that you basically can't trust what he's saying. But I think it is difficult to, like, unless he really sort of thinks about what his answers are going to be in advance for these press conferences and like also predicts the questions correctly. More so predicting the questions, I guess. Like sometimes you can still get caught off guard. And like I go through and I normally watch all the press conferences because I think if you read some of the notes and like quotes that people crop, you don't quite get the full sense of what they're meaning. So in this press conference, he said that Trossard was okay. He also said Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice have had their first like partial training session today, and he went on to say, so that's very good as well, which made me think that like he didn't need to add that little extra bit. Like that made me think that it's pretty likely that they're in good shape. And for me, if you're looking at the sort of like where Arsenal are in the league right now, and this is like Nottingham Forest is a difficult game. Like I know they're at home, but Nottingham Forest have been playing really well this year. So for me, I think Nottingham Forest is like quite an important game for them, and they're going to want Saka to be available because Nottingham Forest, their style obviously is to play like very defensively solid and then break on the counter. So to be honest, actually, I would say Saka and Declan Rice are probably two of the most important players for this game. Um, Saka because he just has that ability to sort of unlock a defence when Arsenal are struggling to break down sort of a low block. I think Saka's really crucial to Arsenal in that way. Like he's their main creative spark that can sort of make something happen. And then Declan Rice is really that guy that is going to be able to be good in transition, and when Nottingham Forest are counter attacking, going to be able to be there and break up those sort of plays. And he's got the legs a little bit more than like a Thomas Partey in there, that he's able to track those runners as they go. So I actually do think Declan Rice will be important in this game. I do think it's like far more likely that they will not play Rice and play Saka because I think offensively they're really going to need Saka, but they do have a few, and you've got like you don't really have anyone that can cover Saka the same way. Like I would say, Partey is relatively close to covering a Declan Rice. Like obviously slightly different attributes, but I mean there's really no one that can come into that team and do the stuff that Saka does. So I think it's far more likely that Saka is going to play and Declan Rice maybe gets rested. My guess would be they're both in. I'd probably say I'm 50-50 on Declan Rice. I'd say Saka is like more than likely to be playing, and Declan Rice is probably, for me, I'm sort of 50-50 whether he's going to be in the team or not. I'd probably say he's more likely to be in than out. So other news coming out of Arsenal, Ben White's out, long-term injury. They don't know how long it's going to be yet. He's hoping that it's not going to be like the whole season or more than half a season, but it is going to be long-term. So I do expect him to miss probably like 8 weeks or something like that at least. Tierney's still not back. Tomiyasu's still out. And Calafiori trained and will be in the squad. Whether or not he starts is unknown. So that Ben White injury obviously means for Arsenal that it's likely that Jurriën Timber's going to be shifted into that right back role. He's back now. And at 5.5 million, he sort of offers an interesting route into that Arsenal team, especially with a lot of fixtures over the coming game weeks and the worry about sort of rotation around there. The only thing I would say about Timber is it's been seen, obviously, that Partey can come in and play in that right back role for Arsenal as well. Obviously, again, more difficult with Declan Rice having injuries as well and them needing to cover the central midfield area. Also, I think Tomiyasu is probably likely to come back at some point. Then there is also the potential of maybe like a Zinchenko playing left back, Calafiori coming over to right back or something like that. So there are options that Arsenal do have at fullbacks, which leads me to think that Timber's not a lock, so to say. I wouldn't say that he's definitely going to be playing every single game for Arsenal. Therefore, that if you're looking for somebody, perhaps you're on a wildcard, somebody you're looking for somebody that's sort of like a set and forget that's going to play every game for Arsenal, it's got to be a Gabriel or a Saliba. None of the fullbacks are guaranteed to be starting every game. I think with Gabriel Saliba, if they're available, they're going to be playing. It's going to be very rare you're going to see them being rested. outside, like in the league, maybe in like a Carabao Cup game or something like that. But I think you're going to see them playing most games. If you have cover on the bench, obviously, like yeah, maybe Timber's a good option. You save 0.5 million over like a Saliba, and maybe I don't know what Gabriel's on now. He is on 6.1, so yeah, 0.6 million on a Gabriel. So if you do have that cover and you're comfortable doing something like that, then yeah, perhaps worth going for a Timber. Personally, I would probably say Calafiore is like a little bit more attacking as a fullback. Timber obviously is playing on Saka's side. Tends to not really run through the fullback as much there. But obviously Calafiore is 5.8 and not 100% committed to be starting this week. We'll talk more obviously in detail about the tactical aspects from all of these clubs in the next section. Just talking through sort of press conference injury updates for now, and then we'll go on to that afterwards. So Liverpool, Trent's not trained. I think it's pretty likely that he's not going to play this week. Realistically, I would sell Trent from my side anyway if I had him. I don't think he's an option at the moment with the cost that he's currently at, and the way that there are mid-price midfielders that are able to pick up the sort of points that he's picking up with his new sort of role under Slot being a lot less attacking as it was under Klopp. So yeah, I think Trent would be a sell this week for sure now, especially with the doubt over whether he's going to be able to play. I would say it's probably 90% certain that he's not going to play this week, especially with big games coming up midweek for Liverpool as well. So Jota still out, Harvey Elliott's still out, Chiesa still out, and Alisson's still out. Alisson is back in goalkeeper training, but not training with the full squad at the moment. That sort of gives you hope that he potentially will be back for next week. Van Dijk fine, no troubles, he'll be back for the game. Sort of run into a little blank of what he said on Chiesa. I think he said Chiesa was sort of starting to try. I don't want to tell you guys fake news. I think from my memory of that press conference that he was saying that Chiesa was starting to train. But yeah, I think it's unlikely to see him starting or as an option in FPL anytime soon. Chelsea press conference. I really like Maresca, and I love his press conferences. To be honest, like he's just got a really good personality. He also like gives you good information in those press conferences. So I think he said overall for sure, all the players that Palmer and Colwell specifically, overall for sure they're much better. Palmer's also trained with Chelsea throughout the week. I expect 99% Palmer's going to be playing for Chelsea this week. I would say definitely bet on it. Only person he mentioned, like specifically, yeah, we've only got one injury. Is Reece James, who's unfortunately out with a hamstring injury. Continues to keep picking up injuries as we go, and they really sort of dug into Maresca a little bit about Reece James, and he's always picking up injuries. Is he ever going to be fully fit, etc. And Maresca, to be fair, defended his player. Like that's what you got to do as a manager, and he was like, yeah, obviously I hope that he can get back to full fitness and have an extended period in run without getting injured. And that's obviously what they hope for him for the future. And me too, to be honest. I think Reece James is a great player, and I'd like to see him back and fit. Brighton, we didn't get anything on João Pedro in that press conference. Hinchelwood in the middle of small issue, not too serious. He should be available. Dunk has been in training, and Ferdi Kadioglu didn't play for Turkey. I think he is very unlikely to be fit based off Ursula's comments. Spurs, Kulusevski obviously looked like he had a bit of a knock in the international fixtures, but Ange said he's fine, nothing major. Richarlison's out, Van de Ven's still out. Bentancour's suspended for his comments about Son, which we won't talk about. And Romero also out more as a precaution. Basically, from what Am said, he should be back next week. He had his daughter's birth, and he's also got like toe, like he's injured his toe, and he's got a bit of hamstring tightness, like not pulled, just a bit tight. So they thought like this is a week for him to rest, like spend time with his new daughter, and give him the little bit of a rest that he might need to feel better. There was a bit of interesting chat in there with Maresca's press conference around like the future of how Chelsea would like to play and whether there's a thought of maybe playing João Felix and Cole Palmer together in like both in the 10 role, and he said that's definitely something they're looking into going forwards, which I thought was super interesting. And I think for Chelsea fans, like that would be awesome for them to see. And then Brighton Hurstler was talking. They asked him about Belieber and whether he could potentially start. He had a little bit of a smirk on his face when that question was asked, which leads me to believe that I think Belieber will be starting for Brighton after his great performance against Man City last week. He really brought that physicality into the middle and changed the game up in the second half a little bit. He also gave an insight again, into the style of play for Brighton this week against Bournemouth. I think we all sort of know how Brighton are going to be playing, and they're going to come out to play against all the teams, big teams, small teams. Like they're going to take it to them. So he did mention like Bournemouth, they can really hurt teams who sit back and defend against them. So I think that sort of sets the boat up. He's going to be playing an aggressive style. Other teams injury updates. Villa, who we've got a little section on later. Villa, we got like a bit of a deep dive into the Villa team and issues they've been encountering this year and what I think the reasons are behind them, and not really a solution to be honest, but Emery hopefully will find one for them. Conte's out, Ramsey's out, and Anna's out, Kamara's out. Cash is available. Like all like important injuries for Villa, to be honest. I talk about Conte being important moving into that centre back role and playing there because he's good on the ball and he's able to like play out at the back. I think Kamara, obviously being injured for a while, has been a big loss for them. He tends to drop into that back three and then be able to sort of help Villa retain possession a bit better, which they've struggled with. Ramsey, I think, is just like a good attacking option for Villa. He can come in the middle or the wings, really, in my opinion. And then Anana, again, another central midfielder. They've really struggled in that area since losing Douglas Luiz and Kamara, obviously, being out already this season. So interesting to see who will come in there in the middle for Villa. Southampton, Ramsdale's out at the moment. Bednarek's also out. So that is two really big thoughts on triple Arsenal defence. Raya, Gabriel, and one more, Saliba or Timber. Price is thinking he might go there. Yeah, I don't. I think it depends on what the rest of your team is, to be honest, because obviously Arsenal's fixture run is great coming up, right? And I mean, even if we look at like what their next few fixtures are over the next few weeks, they've got Forest, West Ham, United, Fulham, Everton, Crystal Palace, Ipswich, Brentford, Brighton, right? But to have three defenders, that just like for me, I think Saka's like a really big player for them and somebody that I definitely want to have in my team over that run. So for me, I'd rather have two and not go for three Arsenal defense. The thing is with that as well, I like to spread the risk across my team, and having triple Arsenal defense. Anything you've seen already this season, they've had 2 red cards during the season and have conceded in those games. Like you could have something small happen in the game, them concede a goal, and that's 3 blanks basically for your team. And I think it's better to just sort of spread the risk across your team a little bit more. My opinion, maybe priced out of Saka. Yeah, I think, look, even if you are priced out of Saka, I think having tripling up in the defense is just risky. It's just risky. Like I said, like if one thing goes wrong for you that week, you got 3 defenders that have blanked. At least if you're able to sort of spread that risk over multiple defenders, I think it's more worth it. Also, the other thing I would say is like if you're going Gabriel and Saliba or like Saliba and Timber, for example, they are not defenders that have the biggest attacking threat. And this season, as we've seen, like teams have not been keeping a lot of clean sheets. Other than Liverpool, there's been no one that's been able to keep consistent clean sheets in the league. And really, like the defenders that have the attacking threat are the ones that are a little bit higher up in the rankings right now. And really, like Saliba, Timber, even Gabriel particularly has not had a great attacking threat. My team is 3-3-3-105. We've already got it. Let's pull your team up and we'll take a look at it. You gone Trent to Gabriel? Yeah, I mean I think that's a great move because I think Trent is a must sell really this week. So the fact that you've done it early, you've probably saved one of his price drops. Just flicking your team up now. 3-3-3-105. Meandering, nice. So you've got Porro, Delo, Aitnuri, Trent at the back, and Raya already. Okay, so you got a double. What you're saying, you've switched out Trent. You've got a double up at the back. Pedro Porro probably going to be on your bench against Man City. So you've got Gabriel, Delo against Ipswich, and Aitnuri v Fulham, and Dunk v Bournemouth this week. I think you're all right, to be honest. I don't think. I do like obviously Arsenal do have good fixtures coming up. But I think your defence is all right. I don't think you really. Who are you going to be moving out? Are you going to be moving out Porro? How much do you have in the bank as well? That'll be interesting. 0.1. Yeah, you're probably going to be moving out Porro, right, to like a Timber or a Saliba. I assume Timber because you won't have the money up for a Saliba. So I think like I quite like your team. I think my what I would look to do, maybe not particularly this week, but I think over the coming weeks, is potentially go Porro down to like a Lewis Hall or a Luca Dean. That gets you maybe one to like 0.8 to 1 mil. And then how do you and then maybe even like a Solanke down to like a Wissa and Mbumo up to Saka. I reckon that would work. I don't know if you quite have the money for that, but if you do, I kind of feel like those would be really nice moves because I think actually at the moment you're seeing when the fact that Wissa's come back is that Mbumo's actually been like a little bit less effective in that. Dina's tempting, yeah, and like if I show you some of the stats for Dina, like he has some of the best attacking stats at the moment for defenders. Like if I pull them up on the screen there, like look at Luca Dean. Luca Dean has the best attacking stats for defenders, and I do think like you've got to take the stats with a little bit of pinch of salt because also he's obviously on corners, Trent's on corners, Robert's on a few corners, which increases their like assists stats. But Villa at the moment, and we'll do a deep dive into Villa a little bit later in the stream and talk about some of their problems that they're having. A, they've got great defensive fixtures coming up, but B, they need the attacking threat from their fullbacks because they've really been struggling since Diaby's gone on the wing for them. Like Bailey's not been doing that much on the right wing, and a lot of their creativity's come from Morgan Rogers in the middle. So they've really needed Luca Dean to be attacking up that left wing. My only concern at the moment is they have Maatsen as well, and because Villa are also in Champions League, there is obviously potential for rotation, and Maatsen's quite an attacking fullback, so potentially like he comes in and rotates a little bit with Dean. Although he's been in great form, obviously got 3 assists in the international break as well. So I do really like Luca Dean as an option. I am just a little bit nervous about his rotation with Maatsen, and I don't know who I would pick. I like Lewis Hall as well. I think Newcastle have some nice fixtures, and I think they're starting to improve as a team. I do think he has a little bit less sort of attacking threat, but I think he's really started to improve over the last few games. I think he's locked down that fullback slot for Newcastle as well. So yeah, I think you got a few options. I think probably what I'd look to do with your team like I said, I'd probably move out of the Solanke to a Wissa, perhaps, and then yeah, look to try and get up to Saka somehow. I'd probably try and move from Mbumo to Saka. I think Mbumo's sort of someone who at the moment for my team as well, I was sort of looking to come out of. I think he's done really well for Brentford. And I think the next two games like fine to own him. Like got a good couple of fixtures. Even Villa, like if they don't improve defensively, you could probably keep him for 14. But I don't think your team needs any drastic changes. Like I think your wild card was pretty good. You got like a really nice team. Alexander Arnold to Gabriel was good. I would try and avoid your triple up in Arsenal defence. I don't think you need to do it. I'm assuming you've maybe got some transfers in the bank. I'd have to put your thing into FPL Gameweek to check it. Or could go Solanke to João Pedro. Yeah, I like João Pedro as well. That's actually what I'd go for. But the only reason I suggested Wissa is because you've got Welbeck already in your team. And I think doubling up on Brighton's, although they've got great fixtures, they're going to have to score a lot of goals for you to double up on their two main strikers. But yeah, I think I'd personally have João Pedro over Welbeck. But the fact you've already got Welbeck in there, I don't think you need to change it. I think Welbeck's also a good option. So yeah, to be honest, I like your team. I think Solanke probably. There's a lot of other good strikers that you can move Solanke on towards. You got one more free transfer this week. Yeah, I've got you now. I've got your full stats up. Yeah. Yeah, I would just avoid the triple Arsenal. I would do your Alexander Arnold to Gabriel, and then if you're gonna make another transfer this week, would probably be Solanke to somewhere else, or a Pedro Porro down to like a Lewis Hall or a Dean. I mean, Spurs could do well on the counter against City this game week. Like obviously, you see Son always scores. I have just enough to go Solanke to Isak, but then Saka would be no go. Yeah, look, it's hard to fit everyone you want in the team, and you've got to make sacrifices somewhere. And realistically, you've got to think like who's most important to you. I think over the next couple of game weeks, like Bruno Fernandes is a good shout. Then after that, is he an amazing option after that? So I think with your team, you almost need to be looking at like a slightly shorter space of time. I think you can sort of use your transfers over the next 4 or 5 weeks in an attacking manner where you attack the fixtures that you want to go for. Yeah, so I think like you're in a good position. You just want to try and take who you think are the best picks over the next like 2-3 game weeks, and that's who you want to use your transfers to attack. I think Solanke to Isak is nice. I think Isak will do well this week. Can't remember who Newcastle have got next week actually. Who have they got next week? Palace as well. So they got two good fixtures. Yeah, I like that as a move. I think your defence, Dalot, Gabriel, and then one of Aït-Nouri and Dunk. I'd probably go Aït-Nouri for an attacking return. I think Bournemouth, Brighton, both teams will score. They're both playing fast in transition, and I think Dunk's you've not really seen a lot of him offensively this year. So yeah, you could probably go Dalot, Gabriel, Aït-Nouri, leave Porro on the bench, move Solanke to Isak, and leave Saka. Yeah, I mean, I think Saka's super important to my team, but I think with the team that you have, you can kind of cover that with a few like other players. Like you have an Isak, you have a Fernandes. They could easily outscore him. And I think that I just don't know how Amarim's going to play. I'm assuming he's going to play 3-4-3 and Fernandes in that right forward position. Like, how do United play? Like, if they look good and Fernandes looks really good, I mean, you're into him at the right time, and he could be a really good option. So, I'm just fearful of United, as I've always been, but I do actually really like Fernandes as an option. The other thing that you think about actually going forwards that I've just thought about now is Delo. I've got a mate who's a United fan who's adamant that Mazraoui will start over Delo in those wing back positions, and then he might start like a Garnacho or a Ahmad in wing back. So Delo might be someone you might need to think about as well going forwards. So take that into consideration. Maybe if you do want to move on a Pedro Porro this week and leave Solanke in for the City game, and then move for an Isak next week against Palace. Just depends where you want to attack. I think you have a good team. I think you should try and attack. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, we'll keep going with the press conference updates. Stream's quite a bit right. Oh, my video is a bit flaky, is it? Probably the Wi-Fi at the moment. Bit flaky. Could be. I'll get my phone off it. Yeah, so all right, if we move back to our sort of press conference updates that we were running through, I think we just got to Southampton. Southampton, Ramsdale's going to be out for a few weeks. I can just see my mate texting me, laughing about something. So, sorry. Ramsdale's going to be out for a few weeks. Roughly, they said that he'd be back around Christmas time. Bednarek also out, back maybe a week or two before. Thanks, Kaya. Please, if you enjoyed the analysis, subscribe and help out the channel with the subscriptions. That really helped me going forward. Glad I could help. Yeah, so Bednarek out, back a week or two before Ramsdale, probably around early mid-December. Really two massive losses for Southampton. Ramsdale obviously has been excellent in goal. They do have current Alex McCarthy, who I do think is actually a very good backup keeper. And Bednarek, on the other hand, is super important to Southampton at the back, the way they're playing at the moment, where they're playing out from the back and they don't want to change that style. You need to have people that are consistently playing together and getting used to playing in that sort of system together. And I think Bednarek's really important to that style of play. And it was interesting in the press conference, Russell Martin was obviously talking about they're trying to find players that have played together and are used to playing together to be able to work their way into that side. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who he comes up with for that centre back position for Southampton. Flynn Downs is back in that midfield role, and I think that is definitely going to be important for Southampton going forwards. He just brings a lot of energy into their team, and is super important to them being able to be good defensively in transition. So that's going to be a big plus. But I do think those defensive losses for them are going to be an issue. And it is not a good week against Liverpool to be missing two key parts of your defence. I think that sort of, for me, I was almost 60-40 on going Palmer as captain over Salah. I think my mind has changed now, and I'm pretty much like 70-30 Salah, just based off these Southampton injuries. I think they're quite important. And just if it was under Klopp, I would be like Salah 100% because Liverpool would press with their super attacking high press, and Southampton are going to be giving the ball away tons. But just because Liverpool's press is a little bit less high energy, I think they might run into a few less problems going forwards. Leicester, Daka available is good news for them, considering Vardy is a doubt. Ayu's also a doubt. I think they're both likely to be unavailable this week, based off listening to that press conference from Steve Cooper. Fatawi out for the season. I think it was an ACL injury that he suffered, which is really tough news for a young kid. I think he's 21 and just sort of breaking into the team. So that's very tough news for him to deal with. And Buonanotte, too many picked up the yellow card, so too many for him, and he is suspended. Nottingham Forest, everyone available. Great news for Nuno. He's got full strength side. They're gonna prove a tough fixture for Arsenal this week. Brentford, Mbeumo and Wissa, who pulled out of international duty, are fit and okay to play. Brentford, for some reason, I just could not find this press conference on YouTube, so I sort of went off some of the summaries that I found of what was said from Thomas Frank. So that was the quote. But I didn't sort of have the actual video itself to go off like the tones and like what you could tell from how they spoke, which was a bit annoying. I don't know why it was just like unavailable in the world. So if anyone has a link to the actual Brentford press conference, flick it to me and I'll put transcripts on in the background. Yeah, my Wi-Fi seems to be a bit funny, so I'm just turning all my devices off Wi-Fi at the moment to work off 4G, and then maybe my camera will be a bit less fuzzy if you guys are getting that. Bournemouth, same issues. Semenyo and Kirkes were out of international fixtures, but they have said everyone that's gone to national team healthy and available. The comments were that I'm not sure if he was talking about both Semenyo and Kirkes. They both had tendonitis. I thought it was definitely Semenyo that he mentioned. So this is sort of the only time in the season where there's a little bit of a break that they're able to sort of get treatment and not continuously play on these sort of chronic, like tendonitis is a chronic injury. It's something that if you're playing on it, you're continuously getting pain post the games. But to be honest, like, so I used to have tendonitis in my ankles, sort of like my heel sort of area. And when you're playing the games, you're generally fine. Like you don't have the pain, you don't have the problem. Like it's not something that's gonna keep them out of matches. It's more like post match. You're getting the pains in your heels when you're walking, and like it takes a lot of recovery and treatment to be able to like easily like then like back it up and training through the week and stuff. That's where your pain comes. So actually having little bits of breaks. And I remember for myself when I was having those injuries, it was more like when I had a week off in the week, like I wasn't training, I wasn't playing. That's when like my heel would be able to recover, and that tendonitis would sort of the inflammation would get less. So I think this sort of couple of weeks break that they've had is going to help a lot, and they should be hopefully okay going forwards and be able to manage those injuries a lot better. Yeah, so that's really good news for both of them. I expect them definitely to both be playing this week. Palace, he himself said he felt fine and wanted to play, but it was a managerial decision to keep him out. He did train during the week as well, but I think because he's such a key player for them, they didn't want to take the risk of putting him in a little bit too early and him getting an injury and then struggle in the future game weeks. Understandably for Crystal Palace, they need to have Eze available, fit and firing. I also think they probably see potentially sort of an Ipswich fixture in 14, Brighton and Bournemouth, and then like their run from 19 onwards as more key fixtures in the second half of the season. And they've got a few sort of difficult games coming up, Villa, Newcastle, and they don't want to sort of risk chucking him back into these sort of games. I think that will mean that they're going to really struggle to score. I do think that probably means that Villa defenders are going to be good this week. So yeah, I think Palace have really been struggling creatively with the loss of Elise and now Eze out as well. I think they'll have difficulties this week. So that was the press conference updates. There obviously were a few other teams, but I thought those were sort of the main comments around players, or sort of the key players that people be looking at. Give us a shout if there's anything else you want to hear about. I think we'll go on to talk about sort of team observations from game week 11, and also sort of like what I'm predicting based off what we've seen of the team so far for game week 12. And we'll see how my predictions go after this week. You'll know if I've done well because I'll talk about them, and if I haven't, I just won't mention it, hoping that none of you saw this. So yeah, game week 11, City Brighton, just to sort of give you guys a heads up. Hang on a sec, just got to reply to this quickly. Someone's asking me if they should triple captain Haaland. Spurs don't have any fit centre backs. He's a Spurs fan as well, so I told him he can come on and give me his team ID. So Man City Brighton, talking about that from last week, right? Brighton, as we've talked about, have a really good press at the moment, right? Really high energy, push right up the field. They caused Liverpool a bunch of problems in the first half the other week, and they obviously caused Man City more problems in the second half when Man City tired a little bit and sort of struggled from. I think it was more like legs perspective for Man City. They really just didn't have the energy. These guys have been playing a lot of minutes. Their players have been obviously because of the injuries having to play midweek and on the weekends. And then Brighton used their subs really well. Like Hertzler was continuously bringing new players in. He brought Belieber in at half time. He really like imposed himself on the game, high energy. Then they kept bringing on, like they brought on O'Reilly, João Pedro, all of these guys, and Brighton just kept pressing, and the energy just got to City, who got tired really, and then sat off Brighton defensively, and then Brighton just picked them off, which you don't see very often from City, and I'm sure Pep was screaming at the team. But yeah, I think it just felt like they tired in the second half. Their players had played a lot of minutes. There was a lot of sort of rotation in the team, and then they just struggled trying to sit back and be orderly with a team that has not, like especially the back four, has not been used to playing sort of Guardiola centre back, Lewis left back, the young kid also centre back, and then Walker at right back. So they weren't used to that sort of. They weren't used to that sort of level of games, level of minutes. So then, like, I do think similarly in this Tottenham game, I do think sort of Man City may struggle on the counter from Tottenham, but I do expect them to be sort of dominating the possession more so than they did, especially in the second half against Brentford. I don't think Tottenham's press is as good as the Brighton press. And I think Man City will have, again, like I spoke about last week, they've got the technical qualities to play out of the press. And with a few people coming back from injury, I'd sort of expect them to be able to keep the tempo going throughout the game. And Spurs, again, with they having a lot of injuries themselves, it's likely that they defensively are going to struggle against City. Similarly to how I thought the case would be against Brighton, I think Spurs will find the same problems of they've got a couple of centre backs. They got a couple of centre backs missing this week. Both Romero out, Van de Ven out, and I'm hoping that I'm thinking like because they're also going to play a more aggressive style than a lot of teams that sit back and have that sort of back five against Man City. I'm expecting Man City to be able to get on the ball and push the sort of push that Spurs defence back a little bit and make sure that they're running on. Haaland is running on to the ball, and that's when they're most dangerous, to be honest. When Haaland's running in behind the defence, he's obviously just so big and so strong, and without centre backs that are playing consistently for Spurs, they're going to cause some real problems for Spurs defensively. I think my prediction, obviously, for this game is both teams to score. Ryan, should I captain Haaland with Spurs defenders missing? If you got Haaland in your team, I think it's like it depends. If you got Haaland and Salah, it becomes more of a decision because obviously Southampton have the same sort of issue. Like they've got Ramsdale and Bednarek missing. If you just have Haaland, I would captain him. I think Haaland's a better captain than a Palmer or a Saka or anybody else. I would say Haaland and Salah is almost a 50-50 toss-up this week for me. I'd probably say go Haaland over Salah. If I had to put my neck on the line, I'd go for Haaland. I think the way that Spurs play is going to be beneficial for Man City. Man City need that space in the midfield, and the fact that Spurs are going to push up high, and they're going to play aggressive football, like Man City are going to be able to counter. You've got both. Yeah, I'd probably go Haaland captain over Salah this week, but I think it's a very close call. Start Garnacho or Cunha? I would start Cunha, the real one. The reason being is just I'm not sure what Chudder's one above you in your league. Yeah, mate, you are. First second. Thanks for pointing that one out. Not for long, mate. I'm coming back. Yeah, the real one. I'd probably start. I'd start Cunha just because I don't know who Amarin's going to play in those sort of forward positions and also those wing back positions for United. I'm not convinced Garnacho is going to get the start. My mate, who's a United fan, thinks that he'll probably start in that sort of wing back role for them. But I do think it's likely that you're going to have at least Fernandes in one of those forward roles in the front three, probably Holgand in the middle, and then maybe like a Rashford on the left side. So for me this week, I'd start Cunha. Going forwards, like let's see what Amarim goes with in his lineup, and then that will sort of give you a bit more feedback as to whether you go Garnacho. I do think it's going to be like not an easy game for Wolves. I think Fulham are actually a side that are in good form, and I think that Wolves, as I've spoken about before, don't really have a lot of creativity, and Cunha is that main creative spark in the midfield. So I'd probably still go with Cunha just on the basis that he's going to play 90 minutes for them. Like he's their talisman player. Also on pens for Wolves, so there's just more possibilities for him of picking up points than Garnacho, who's probably likely to maybe have like 20 minutes and also playing in this new system under Amarim. You just don't know like where he's going to slot in and if he's going to be as dynamic as he was previously. Carrying on with these sort of team observations that we're talking through, Liverpool, as we spoke about, unless Garnacho becomes a left wing back, I don't think he starts in Amarim's system. Yeah, thanks, Nick. I know you're a United fan, so I sort of take what you've got to say a lot more seriously about these United players. I probably agree. I think. Are you thinking like it's either Delo or Mazraoui starting at right wing back and then somebody else at left wing back slot? But yeah, I don't. And I'd probably Rashford at left forward. What do you think United's starting lineup's going to be? That'd be interesting. I'd be keen to know what your thoughts are. My guess is Fernandes right forward, Holgand middle, Rashford left forward. I don't know who those wing backs are going to be. I really don't know who the wing backs are going to be. I would guess Delo because I just think he's. I know you don't think it's Delo, but I think Delo's he looks nice. I know you think he hasn't been playing well lately, but I think it will be like a Delo and maybe you got an Acho, maybe an Ahmad, something like that. I think that's probably who I think would start in those positions. Yeah, so on Liverpool, I think you've seen this year they've defended so much better. Like they've been a lot less like their press has been far less sort of crazy, hectic. Like the fullbacks haven't been getting too high in the press. They've been keeping a better shape, while also still trying to press, but it's not the same sort of like Gegan press that Klopp implemented in past seasons. So you see that Liverpool have also like not won the ball up high as much as they have done previously. But the counter for that is when they've been going forwards, they're also their fullbacks have not been as involved in the play, and you can see by Trent's stats this season the fact that he's not been getting as many assists in past season, is that he's just playing a different role in this slot system, and they're much more defensively solid. You're even seeing Salah coming back defending. And it's also because Liverpool have been, it's a bit more difficult because their fullbacks are defending more properly. That they're just not able to get counter attacked on as much as they have done previously in transition, and then their wingers are able to get back because they've got that solid sort of back four that sort of get back again behind the ball. And then Salah's been coming back and also been doing stuff defensively, which is I think one of the reasons why his stats are slightly down this season. If you were to look at like what Salah's like non-penalty expected goals etc. are this season over past seasons, they're definitely down what they have been previously. But he's just still managing to turn around such incredible stats because his finishing has just been so good. He's just been way more clinical than he has done in previous seasons. And the changes to the bonus point systems as well has really benefited him because he often gets like a couple of shots on target, and is involved. And he's been involved in a lot of sort of one-on-one actions for Liverpool as well out on that right wing. And he's sort of been able to beat somebody off the dribble, also sort of getting those points in. So it's been definitely beneficial for Salah in the bonus point system. He's really been picking up a lot more bonus points this season. There was a really amazing video that I think it was above average FPL did on breaking the bonus point system. If you haven't seen that, definitely recommend checking it out. I thought it was really interesting to see the baseline of a lot of players and why you can see this season that the defenders have not been picking up as many bonus points and the midfielders and forwards have been. And I think that's really important in talking about strategy, and sort of why you're going to focus your money on your teams. And for me, that is one of the reasons why I think Trent is a sell, as well as the system, and the system that he's in under Slot is like a little bit more defensive than previous years. He's also not being able to pick up bonus points. So if Liverpool win or keep it, like if they keep it, unless it's 0-0, if Liverpool win, the guy who scored the goal and the guy that's got the assist is going to get more points than Trent, most likely, unless he gets attacking returns. So, yeah, again, for me, I think Trent's a sell. Obviously, picked up an injury. I think based off what we chatted about in the press conference, he's going to be unlikely to play. I don't expect him to play this week, especially with the important games Liverpool have got in midweek. Finners, my man, back on the channel. Finners did a great great banner for my YouTube channel for me the other week, which I think I tried to show on one of the live streams and failed miserably. And I'm probably going to fail again if I try and find it. It's actually like it shows up way better on TV than on desktop. If you got a TV, check out my banner. Super cool. Finish helped me create it, so I thought it was wicked. I might even have the like PowerPoint version that I've got. Maybe I can check. I'll find it at some point. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. Sort of, what do you say, Nick? left wing back Mazraoui, right wing back Dalot, midfielder Guy, Casemiro, Fernandes, Rashford, Holden. Yeah. Anana, Euro, Delit, Martinez, Shaw. Yeah, I think I kind of think what you said is roughly what I think the United team is going to be. I'd be interesting to see if he goes with Mazraoui and Dalot at wing backs. If he just goes with one of them over the two, then you might see like a Garnacho or an Ahmad get into the team. Yeah, otherwise it might be a little bit more difficult for them to get themselves into that team. I'm still trying to find this banner. I don't know where I saved it on the computer. Sorry, Finners. Keep meaning to show this, and I'll never do it. Yeah, that's interesting, Nick. I think that's definitely sort of the look that I think United are going to go for. I think for the first time ever, I'm super excited to watch United play this season. And I know people always tell me that I'm always hating on United, but I'm not. It's not been that exciting to watch them play this season. But yeah, I think looking forwards could be some really like super interesting setup and game for United. Here we go. I found this banner. Now I've got to show it on the screen. Anyway, while I'm trying to sort that out, I can continue on talking about Liverpool. So I think my prediction for this week is Liverpool to beat Southampton and also Salah to score. I would be surprised if he didn't manage to score this week. So I'm going. Well, I've gone for Salah to get a return. So I'm sort of covering myself if I screw something up. And if he pulls an assist, I'm claiming it as a victory for me. Sam Haslam, thanks for joining in, mate. Always good to see you. Liverpool crap. It's because you're a Chelsea Watford fake fan. You don't even have a team. Finish, mate. Honestly, this banner is impossible to get up on the screen. I don't know why. It just won't let me do it. Just won't let me show it. Whatever I do. Why won't it let me show? It's like it hates me, this thing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to screenshot it and I'm going to put it in my PowerPoint. And it can't stop me. Can't stop me. Maybe it's just I'm in live stream and my computer doesn't like me doing too many things. Alright, maybe it can stop me. Never mind. Everyone go check it out on TV. It looks great. Yeah, carrying on, we'll move on to Villa. I think Villa, again, sort of constantly have been suffering post-Champions League fixtures. And I think probably to their benefit this week that they didn't have a midweek Champions League fixture. I think it's a good game for them against Palace. They should, and especially with Palace missing Eze as well. I expect, to be honest, Villa to keep a clean sheet in that game. I know their defence has not been super solid, but going forwards, it's not been because it's also been a lot because of their injuries, and again they're struggling again this week with a few injuries from the Villa side as well. But yeah, I just think Palace have been super missing creative talent throughout this year, and I think I'll go on to talk about Villa in a lot more detail later in the stream because I've got a whole section on like a deep dive on Aston Villa, and just to see sort of some of the problems they've had going forwards, and why that is, and also some of the problems they've just had in midfield, and also how Rodgers has been fantastic for them in sort of having that link-up play between the midfield and the attack. He's been really important to Villa in the way that they've played this season. I think he's been really good for them. And when he does come out of the side, and when they have Duran and Watkins playing up front together, that actually causes quite a few problems for them. So yeah, my predictions for City, Spurs, both teams score. Bournemouth, Brighton again, both teams score. They're both attacking teams. I think next page is it's going to be Bournemouth. Their sort of wrap up of their last week game against Brentford, which again was fast-paced, high transition game, which is similar to how I expect the Bournemouth Brighton game to be, which is why I think both teams will score again. Like I think there'll be a lot of transition football. Both teams will be playing at pace, and I think both teams will manage to score. I think Bournemouth are a little bit more defensively solid at home, just because I think they have a smaller pitch, so it's easier for them to sort of maintain the spacing in the defence. But yeah, I still do think both teams will score in that game. Yeah, Brentford Bournemouth, and we said in the stream last week actually that was going to be a high scoring game because of the high pace transition football. And I don't know if I talked about Wisser in the last stream, but I just love Wisser as an option as a forward. Like he just has unbelievable footballing IQ. He manages to get in the positions like he's always in the right position. He's really been, since coming back for Brentford, so important to their side and just helped their attack flourish even more than it has done before. In contrast to that, you've got Everton, who just have really struggled defensively, and Sean Dyche has tried to make them, as we know from Sean Dyche, defensively solid manager, similarly to the way he was at Burnley. But I think their attack really has been poor. Dom Calvert-Lewin couldn't hit a barn door, and B, they just play a really direct long ball style of football, which video is good now apparently. Thanks guys. They just play a sort of very long ball style of football that it's just difficult in this sort of Premier League style where you're not going to see the ball a lot if you play direct football. And there are so many teams now in the Premier League that play a much more possession based. They play out from the back. And Everton just have to do a whole lot of running. And you need really your striker to be clinical when you're playing that sort of direct football because you're not going to get a lot of chances. But the ones that you do, you need to make sure you're finishing. Ferrari, start Rodgers or Solanke? That's a tough one because, like I said, I expect Spurs to be good offensively against City. I think they will cause them problems on the break. Whether it's going to be Solanke that's going to be getting on the end of them, yet to be seen. But I also think Rodgers against Palace is really good, like really nice fixture for him. Depends what the rest of your team is. Do you have any other Spurs or Villa players, or is it just those two in your team? If it's just those two in your team, then I think I would start Solanke, but I think it's a close call because I also think Villa are going to keep a clean sheet, and I think Rodgers is going to get +1 points for that. So if they do both blank, Rodgers would win. But I just have a feeling that Solanke might be able to grab a goal against Man City. I think that's a tough call. I think if you have anybody from Villa or you don't have anyone from Villa or Spurs, then I think that's a tough call. I think I'd start Solanke. I think the matchup Spurs v City is going to be interesting, and City have not been good defensively this year. Like they have conceded quite a lot of chances, and they obviously concede a lot of chances in transition, which is what Spurs are the best at. Like Spurs are at their best in transition. The only thing for me is whether it's going to be Solanke on the end of those chances, or if it's going to be a Son, Brennan Johnson that are getting ahead of the play with that pace. Like is Solanke going to be sprinting up the pitch and getting on the end of those balls? Maybe. And I think that if you do think that it is going to be Solanke and they are going to then maybe they pull in across to him, I think I'd go Solanke. I think there's probably equal upside for both of them. Like Villa's just got such a great fixture against Palace, who've been defensively poor this year and offensively poor this year. More offensively poor than defensively poor, to be honest. So I do think there is some upside for Rodgers. The only thing is for that is like Rodgers is great in transition as well. Like he really like progressively drives the ball up the pitch really well. I don't think there are going to be that many opportunities to be like counter attacking or like in that sort of transition phase against Palace because they're not going to be like bombing forwards on you. They're going to be sitting back in the low block, and we're going to have to. Villa are going to have to like find a way around that. So yeah, I think I'd probably go Solanke. City without Kovacic, so no proper Rodri replacement. Yeah, I think I was talking about that a little bit earlier. I think it'll either be Stones or Lewis putting in that role. But you can never tell with Pep. Sometimes he'll find some crazy solution to that. But yeah, I think either Stones or Lewis will play in there, which will be interesting for Lewis owners this week. I think I would. I don't know. I own Lewis. He's on my bench still. But yeah, I think I go Solanke over Rodgers as my call on that Ferrari. Thanks for the question, mate. Hopefully, it's a good answer for you. Where was I? Oh yeah, Brentford, Bournemouth. Yeah, I think like I said, Wissa is just an amazing option. I think if I was on a wild card, and I will go through wild card teams also in this stream, I would probably have Wissa in my wild. In fact, I would have Wissa in my wild card team. I'm pretty sure I'd have Wissa. I think it would be Wissa, João Pedro, and Isak up front for me. That would probably be my team. Yeah, so I think my call, just based off Everton and their terrible attack this year, is I think this is going to be the week that Brentford keep their first clean sheet of the season. So a bit of a bolder prediction for this game from me. I haven't played it safe like with my sort of Salah return, which might bite me in the butt as well if he doesn't do anything. Wolves v Fulham. Obviously, Wolves v Southampton last week. Wolves were in that sort of 3-4-2-1 formation with Lamina and Gomez holding, and Sarabia and Cunha playing just above them. And that's Cunha sort of being given not so much the freedom, but like he's sort of been given a more free role in the side than other people. I think what they came out and said for Wolves in that post match is they're working on like how to link Cunha with the play and make sure that he's as involved as possible, but also making sure that like he's not just trying to create out of nowhere and that he's trying to link up with the team, because he's really like their only creative spark in that Wolves team. I would say Sarabia also like a little bit, but he's more of like a positional player rather than like technical ability to be creative. And that is a problem for Wolves. That like even against Southampton, I think Southampton had like 70% of the ball or something like that, and Wolves really struggled to keep possession. And they are going to struggle against teams that are more possession based and just higher quality teams. I do think Fulham, although I think they're a very good team, I don't think they fit into that bracket of like a really possession based team. Like Fulham are one of the teams who I think have really fast, progressive build up play. And like they have excellent movement. They use Raul Jimenez as a sort of target man to bounce balls off, and then they've got sort of Smith Rowe, they've got Iwobi, Adama, Nelson, all sort of busting a gut to get up the field and play quickly. So I think that does leave some opportunities for Wolves to have a little bit more of the ball and have a chance to score. So I think there is an opportunity for Wolves to have a little bit more creative chances in this game than there has been in past games where teams have been a bit more possession based. But again, I think defensively, like they're not going to keep a clean sheet. Like I think Fulham are a good defensive side. As I've been speaking about for a few weeks now with Wolves, I think their defence really struggles to keep a good line. I think their spacing between their defenders is not great, and I think like obviously their fullbacks are so high. It reminds me of like a almost like a Liverpool offensive fullbacks where under Klopp, where they just used to get so high and get caught out frequently. And obviously that's an offset for someone like an Ait Nouri. Like you want him in your team because he's got great chances of getting attacking returns, and also like Wolves fixture run's really good coming up. That maybe they'll sneak in a good defensive performance somewhere, or get a bit lucky against one of the teams. And he's also got a chance of bringing in those attacking returns. Um, so yeah, that's probably my thoughts. I do think Fulham are going to win the game. I think they'll have a little bit too much offensively for Wolves. I think they have a chance of Wolves scoring, maybe like a 2-3-1 Fulham or a 2-0. But yeah, I do think Fulham will win the game. Cool. Moving on to Palace. Yeah. So, well, like I said, my prediction for Game Week 12 was actually Villa to keep a clean sheet about Palace. And I think I made this prediction before I heard the press conference with Eze out, but I mean that sort of gives me even more reason to think that there's going to be a clean sheet. Yeah, I guess we talked about that game against Fulham. I've talked about Fulham really utilising that counter-attacking play. Yeah, I just think Palace have looked poor going forwards. I think it's a really good defensive fixture for any team with their lack of creativity. And yeah, I just think Villa will keep a clean sheet. West Ham v Newcastle this week. West Ham again, as I've been saying this year, have just been so bad defending in transition, and like I think lots of people started talking about this now. They're just they're just reminiscent of like a 2022 Man United side who just used to get done on the counter attack frequently. And you saw it in that game against Everton. I think it was like 2 minutes into the game. West Ham gave away the ball. No one tracked back. Their midfield didn't track back. Even their defenders weren't. Like I don't know where their fullbacks were. And you've got Somerville as the winger, the only guy who sprinted like 70 yards back to make this like diving last ditch slide tackle to stop Everton from scoring. And yeah, it was just awful, like really awful. Defensively, the effort that they show is poor. And I've got a mate who's a West Ham fan who always talks about this like most weeks. He just talks about Paqueta tries like all these crazy creative passes, gives the ball away, and no one tracks back, and they just get bombed on the counter. And it unfortunately, fortunately for West Ham last week, the way Everton play are just like played into their hands a little bit. Everton sort of play a bit more direct football, whereas if they were actually had that sort of fast progressive play that sort of a Fulham, for example, have, they would have caused them all sorts of problems. But because they're a little bit like more direct, a little bit not so efficient at moving the ball and driving the ball through the space, they didn't really isolate those West Ham defensive issues that they've had in the past. And West Ham I thought they'd have a little bit too much quality for Everton and they'd score, but just didn't quite have that finishing touch. So I think my pick this week is actually Newcastle to keep a clean sheet against them. I think Newcastle have been really improving defensively. You saw that against Arsenal. You've seen that in the last couple of games. And I think just as a team, like Eddie Howe's been really good at technically adjusting that Newcastle team to make the changes that they needed to make. They've also got Isak back in. He's looking sharp again. I think offensively, I think Newcastle will win that game. I think Lopetegui's got to find something. He's got to change something. He's got to find something for that West Ham team because they've got a lot of talented players in that team, and it's just shocking how poor they've been this season. Really, really, you've got sort of. I would say Jared Bowen and Mohamed Kudus have been the two sort of standout players for West Ham this year. Obviously, Kudus suffered like rush of blood, got his red card. And then missed a few games for them. Yeah, that's that. I don't know why I've got Chelsea Newcastle on the right there. So apologies. That should be Chelsea Leicester. But yeah, I'm expecting Palmer to get a return in the game. Covering everything here, aren't I? Let me just fix that. Yeah, expecting Amarin to get a return in that game. Expecting Palmer to get a return in that game against Leicester. Leicester have obviously suffered a few injuries as well. Although they have been scoring goals, they have been conceding a lot of goals. Lopetegui out, Nick. Yeah, mate. Honestly, like if he doesn't get a result this week, West Ham have looked shocking under him. So I don't like to call for managers to be fired. I actually think like they should be given way longer. I don't think even David Moyes should have been sacked. I thought he was doing a great job at West Ham personally. I know West Ham fans didn't think the same, um, but personally I thought he was doing a fine job. Didn't need to go. So I think Chelsea and can't remember who it was that was talking about it. I think he's like an ex-Arsenal player. I can't remember who it was. Anyway, they're talking about this sort of Palmer Augusto relationship where when Gusto inverts on the right side into a 10 and Palmer ends up on the left, um, he just feels like he's not as involved in the game out there. And to be in like the best position for him, he needs to be in that 10 role. I really agree with that for Chelsea. Like Palmer picking up those balls in between the lines there is far more deadly than him being out on the left hand side. And I know it was partly due to like Thomas Partey was man marking him in that first half, and that sort of he shifted over to the left to sort of create a bit of space, thinking like maybe Partey will go with him, and then there'll be a bit more space in the middle for Chelsea to play. And that's actually something that Barcelona used to do with Messi. Is Messi, when teams would man mark him, would drift into a wide position and try and pull the central midfielders or the defensive midfielders wide to create gaps for other players. And I think that's what Maresca was is sort of looking to do with Palmer, but it didn't really work. Like it just felt like Chelsea didn't have the technical quality in the rest of the team to be able to just understand that and get through those gaps without Palmer being such a key part. Um, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And I wonder whether teams are going to implement that going forwards, sort of man mark Palmer to push him out onto the outskirts and to make him not involved in the game, even if that sort of creates a problem for them defensively. Does it also create more of a problem for Chelsea offensively that they aren't able to have the sort of technical quality to get the goals? So interesting to see whether Leicester will adopt something like this against Chelsea in the future. And I'll tell you what, like this is kind of bugging me that this is showing a Newcastle thing. So I'm just going to change it. Change it to the Leicester badge. Get it back up for you guys. There we go. So look, I do think Chelsea are going to score. I'm not convinced that they're going to keep a clean sheet. I think Leicester might find a goal. I know with no Jamie Vardy, if he doesn't play, obviously he's just a doubt. But if he doesn't play, Leicester are a bit less of a threat going forwards. He really does just make a lot happen for that Leicester team just so active, lots of runs in behind, runs down the channels, just creating havoc for the defenders. And then from an Arsenal perspective, as we spoke about, I think I'm expecting Saka to play. I'm 50-50 on Declan Rice, but probably would say I think it's an important game for Arsenal. I think he'll probably play. but he's the one I'd probably be a little bit more worried about based off what Arteta said in the press conferences. I think it will be a difficult game. I think Nottingham Forest are going to set up a low block against them. They're going to play deep. They're going to try and hit them on the counter. They're going to have Gibbs White and Elanga and these guys, Hudson Odoi, trying to catch Arsenal out on the counter attack. And I think that if Rice isn't playing, the Forest will get a goal against Arsenal. I do think they'll get caught out on the counter if Declan Rice isn't there. Like, his energy and legs in the midfield is quite important for them, and I would say more so than a Thomas Partey, who doesn't quite have that same ability, even though he has a more physically imposing figure in there. Different roles, I would say. So yeah, I think it'll be a good game, Arsenal Forest. It's one actually that I'm really looking forward to watching because I think Nuno's a fantastic coach. I think Arteta's a better coach than he is a talker. But yeah, I think that will be a super interesting game to watch from a tactical perspective. I think there'll be some good analysis that we can give after that game. And then, yeah, I guess the couple of games that I didn't do observations on last week were the Spurs Ipswich game and the United Leicester game. Thoughts being really, obviously, it was going to be different this week for Man United. They're going to set up completely differently under Amorim. He came out and said in his press conference, I believe in my philosophy of play, and I need to make my players believe in that philosophy in order to be successful. Obviously, he's going to make some tactical tweaks and changes depending on personnel, but the style of play and the way that he wants to play is going to be clear right from the start. And obviously, something that many of the pundits, the Nevilles, the Skulls, all the United guys have been talking about for a while is giving Man United an identity. And to be honest, it would be nice to see United back in the mix and another team competing for the title. Maybe not to see them win it, but maybe second or third. I know the United fans won't like that, but just competing. Yeah, it would be nice to see them back competing for stuff. Maybe I will live to regret that comment in a couple of years' time. Someone will be clipping it and posting it somewhere on YouTube. So yeah, I'm expecting Amorim to set up in his 3-4-3, as we talked about earlier. Probably the front three: Fernandes on the right, Rashford on the left, Holding in the middle, holding midfielders Ugarte, Casemiro. And then two sort of wing backs that I think are for me are probably the main. I don't know who they're going to set up with there, but thoughts from sort of United fans are Delo and Mazraoui, or at least one of the two, and then maybe a Mad or a Garnacho at wing back. But yeah, I think again that's going to be another really interesting game for some tactical analysis on that hopefully we can give next week based off sort of what Amorim goes for. Yeah, and then moving into this sort of Villa deep dive that I wanted to do for you guys. I think this is going to be quite an interesting part of this video. Let me move my face out of the way. So you look at this. I went and just found a video of this game. This was the point that I remember from watching the match that I thought, wow, this is crazy. And I think it was midway through the second half in the Villa Spurs game. I think it was either 1-1 or 2-1 Spurs at the time. I think it was 1-1. Both teams were obviously trying to win the match. They'd taken Morgan Rogers off. Villa had taken Morgan Rogers off for John Duran, and they were playing Duran and Watkins up front. together. And you can see Watkins on the ball there, like top left of the screen, and Duran like bottom left of the screen, both like on the halfway line, both looking to run forwards. And then you see like what really stands out in this picture is this huge red circle in the middle here, where you've got no Villa players, and that's like Rodgers missing from that midfield, and he's really been the link play between a between the midfield and the front line, and he's really been able to link the play really well. And then the problem is because the two Villa forwards were obviously like dragging the team, like trying to make runs in behind and drag the team forwards, it pulled the team, like it almost pulled the team lengthways. And with Rodgers coming off in the middle, it left this sort of emptiness in the midfield that allowed Tottenham ultimately. So what actually happens here in this play is Tottenham get the ball, that Tottenham win this ball off Watkins, get the ball into this sort of middle area. It goes like a little 1-2-3 between Kulusevski, Johnson, and Solanke, and they're just straight in for a goal. And it just allowed then after that, there was more and more of Tottenham being able to pick up the ball in those sort of spaces, turn and drive into those open spaces and score. And I think Villa's midfield has been sort of them. Well, I mean, they've had a few problems this season, but one of the main things is, or a few of the main things, right, is they lost Douglas Luiz. He went to Juventus. Boubacar Kamara was injured, and those two were super important in like the way that Villa retained possession and built the play up. So Kamara basically, when he used to play in there, used to drop a little bit deeper into the two defenders and pick up the ball as part of like a back three, and then would be able to play out from there with Konsa and like a power, for example, in that sort of back three. And Konsa on the ball is really like way more comfortable on the ball as well than like a Diego Carlos. And so what we've seen this season with Villa is because they've had injuries from like Matty Cash as a right back, and you've seen Konsa having to move out to that right back role, and Diego Carlos come in at centre back, is again, he's a little bit less confident on the ball. And Villa just finding it a little bit more harder to play out through the back. I think Diego Carlos is like a really good defender and has defended fantastically, like very strong physical defender, but just technically doesn't have those same sort of ball playing skills that Konsa would have to be able to play out from the back. So missing Kamara in that midfield to drop in and sort of give that extra control has been a problem. And losing Douglas Luiz has also been a problem. Now, they've now got Tielemans and Onana in that midfield. And I was reading some really interesting stats on this as well about the way that Tielemans moves the Villa midfield forwards. Is he plays far more progressive forward, like attacking passes than what, for example, like a Douglas Luiz used to do. And I should have put up like a pass map, but you see when Douglas Luiz was in that Villa side, there was maybe like 200 passes, all that he's making left, right, up, down, shorter passes, moving the ball around, trying to move the defence from side to side, side to side, and keep possession until they're able to find a gap and plug into that gap. Whereas Tielemans, there's maybe like 50 passes, and most of them are like forwards passes, and he's looking to find those sort of key passes. And what's interesting to see is that actually this has reduced Aston Villa's percentages, like possession percentage, and also not really improved their like attacking output and the goals that they're scoring. So actually last season, where they might not have been playing as many like progressive like attacking passes as such, they played a lot of sort of side to side and moved the team side to side, and then were able to get in with an incisive pass after that. And last season, their attacking stats were actually slightly better. So the difference between the Tielemans in there versus like a Douglas Luiz that was shifting the play has actually affected sort of Villa's ability to retain possession and also to score. And when they are losing possession, especially when you then take Morgan Rogers out of that side in that attacking midfield slot, and you have here, like you're seeing in this screen, Watkins and Duran stretching the play forwards, then Villa are really susceptible to being counter-attacked. And that is exactly what happened in this game against Spurs, is that they take Morgan Rogers out of that side. You've got like Tielemans and Onana. They're still trying to play really sort of key passes. And Watkins sort of got a little bit into trouble there, tried to kick it past and get through. And in all fairness, if he did make it past him, he was probably in on goal. But then as soon as Villa turned that ball over, Tottenham just were in all this space to run at and get into. And that is exactly what happened. And then they kept happening, and they kept running into that space, and have ended up winning 4-1. So super important for Aston Villa to start retaining possession a little bit better in that midfield. And obviously Kamara's still being out, and Nana are also out this week. So it'd be interesting to see who plays in that sort of midfield role alongside Tielemans, and whether they are able to retain possession a little bit better this week. And I think when Kamara comes back, which is soon, that should hopefully help out their midfield in terms of retaining possession. I think that's probably the main thing that I want to talk about in this deep dive. But the other thing to also note is that the sale of Diaby for 50 mil last season, he obviously created a bunch for Villa. I think he got like 14 returns last season for Villa or something like that. And him coming out of that Villa side and then Bailey being on the right has just not been as creative at all. They mostly played Bailey and McGinn out there. Neither have really been able to hit the heights that Moussa Diaby did for Villa last year. And that's been a real problem for them. So attackingly, like in an attacking sense, they've just not only have they not been able to sort of break down the defence by moving them side to side, but their wingers haven't been able to create as much as they did last season. And that's sort of one of my reasons why I have, although like I think Luka Dean is a good option in FPL wise. But one of the reasons that I do have a slight concern over him is that I do think that Maatsen is in there as a very attacking fullback. And I think as long as Dean continues to play as well as he's been playing, he's probably going to stay in the side as first choice. But if Villa are really struggling offensively and they're needing more attacking creativity, there might be some times where you see Maatsen replace Digne in that side. So we'll see what Unai Emery does, and I'm sure he'll work out a solution to that. Maybe it'll be Kamara coming back into the side. Maybe it will just be like a bit of fitness, like Kamara comes back fit, Matty Cash comes back as right back, Konsa slots back into that centre back role, and they're able to retain possession a little bit better. Maybe that will help them going forwards. Or maybe like they're still going to struggle and they're going to need to get a bit more attacking down those wings, and they'll need like a Maatsen to come in and play that sort of left wing back role where he really bombs up and down. I think Matty Cash also does a good job at fullback for Villa. Normally when he's in there, I just think he's struggled with his fitness and injury problems this season. So I think I thought that's a really interesting sort of look into Villa's side and the sort of changes and the things that they've suffered this season in comparison to last season. It's not really to do with, almost not really to do with Watkins, and there are some chat about Watkins and big chances missed and goals scored this season, but I think there's a sort of deeper knowledge to that Villa team that you need to have a think about, and it'll be interesting to see if there are more changes to come for Villa, especially over this Xmas period, and whether Unai Emery decides to make big changes or not. Cool. So we will then just quickly move on to a little bit of player analysis. I know you guys always like the stats sections as well as the sort of tactical stuff that I give you. I'm also very thankful for the people who love my tactical stuff, because I think that's what sort of sets this channel apart a little bit. So we just run through sort of the best defenders, midfielders, and attackers that we think going forwards for Game Week 12. and then we'll dive into sort of the wild card draft sort of team. And then if you guys have any questions on who you want in your team, any wild card drafts that maybe you want help with, chuck your team in there. Let me know what you want, and I can have a chat, and we can go through some of your teams live and chat through what I think the best changes would be. Defensively, at the moment, we've got at the top of the list here, I would say you've got sort of a Luca Dean, a Ryan Aït-Nouri, and a Lewis Hall as defenders that have really good sort of attacking outputs. And the way I do my colour scheme is maybe a little bit confusing, but like orange is more like people to talk about. And to be honest, I'd probably have Lewis Hall as a green. Luca Dean's only really an orange just because of what I just said and talked about Aston Villa and the potential for them to do some sort of changes with Maatsen going forwards. And I think just over this Christmas period, it'd be really nice to have like players locked in your team that you don't have to worry about being rotation issues, because there are going to be a bunch of rotations over this Christmas break, because all of the games are coming in such quick succession that managers are definitely going to be rotating their teams around. And if you can have players that are going to be nailed week in, week out, regardless of rotation, then that's going to be really important to you being able to use your transfers for attacking purposes over this Christmas run. So yeah, I think those are probably my three key guys, and then I would actually say like a Delo and a Mazraoui would come in as really like interesting. Don't really frame just on you guys there. I just saw something pop up that maybe got disconnected, but hopefully it's running okay. I think we're back up. Yeah, don't really have any particular defenders that I like. I would say those are my key sort of defenders that I think are good options for this game week. Outside of those guys, I'm really not that big on a lot of defenders. Obviously, I think Trent's a definite sell this week, injury wise, offensive output wise, and just price wise is a bit too much for what he's giving back. He's not getting those attacking returns that we've seen in the past from him, and that money can just be much better off spent in midfield. Robbo with his rotation with Simicas, for me again, and just at that price point, it's just quite difficult to justify unless they're getting attacking output for Liverpool, which the fullbacks are just not playing in the same manner as they did under Klopp. I just don't think they're worth that extra money. I do think Konate is an interesting one for Liverpool if you're just looking at a clean sheet basis. I think he's now starting to get up to around 5.5 million. And I do think if United start to look good, I think Delo is going to be a better pick. So I think if you can hold off on your defender transfers, if you've got no real big need to make moves there, yeah, it's probably worth just waiting and seeing over the upcoming weeks who the guys to go for are. I think this United game week will really help bed down who we think are the people to go for. If I was to pick someone for this week, it would be probably a Luca Dean or a Lewis Hall. And if I was to punt, it would be Diego Dalot. I just think the Aït-Nouri fixture against Fulham's not that great. I do think Fulham will score. Unless he gets an attacking return, I think there's more chances of Dina, Hall, and a Dalot clean sheet. Moving on to the midfield, and probably what you guys will want to hear about captaincy choices this week between Salah, Palmer, etc. I really do think that it was a difficult decision to make this week. And originally throughout the week, I probably was bigger on Palmer. I just felt like he would be able to find those pockets of space against Leicester. And if they did really sit off, he would be able to create or hit some long shots from distance. So I thought they would struggle as well, Leicester going forwards, if they missed Jamie Vardy, who's obviously a doubt, not confirmed. I probably don't think he's going to play. And I think that means that Chelsea are going to be more on the front foot and Leicester are going to be more on the back foot and maybe trying to play more on the counter. But then after hearing the news of Ramsdale and Bednarek for Southampton, I just think that it's going to be really difficult for Southampton to play their game plan playing out from the back without people who have been regularly playing that style in games and in like important Premier League games. And they make plenty of mistakes playing out for the back. Every game Southampton are making 1 or 2 mistakes playing out for the back and giving away opportunities. And if they give them away to Salah in the form that he's in at the moment, he has been super clinical and could score a couple. I would be surprised if Salah doesn't return this week. I would also be very sad because he's going to be my captain. But look, I can see Cole Palmer also grabbing a couple of goals. So I don't think either of them are bad captaincy choices. Go for who you think's better. My pick would be Salah this week. But yeah, feel free to go for a Palmer. If you do have a Haaland, I'd probably go for Haaland over Salah. Unless you're a Spurs fan, then feel free not to. But yeah, I just think that game is quite suited for Haaland, especially with Spurs missing their 2 centre backs. Who's going to occupy him? It's going to be Ben Davies and someone else playing. We will be playing centre back for Spurs, so they're not going to be used to playing together. Will definitely be a different experience for Spurs, and I wonder how Andrew will pull it off. But it'd be lovely to see City lose 5 games in a row. And just sort of bring all those teams a little bit closer together. It's always nice to see the Premier League as a competitive league and all teams being able to beat other teams. I think that really makes the spectacle so much better. I'm sure City fans will disagree with me. They've been dominating for so many years. They're probably pretty happy with it as it is. But look, City is still going to be a great team for many, many years to come. And obviously they got Guardiola signed a 2-year new deal, so definitely for another 2 years anyway. Yeah, in the midfield, I think there's a lot of good options in midfield. I think this is really where you want to be spending your money. I think Palmer and Salah, you should definitely be looking at. Saka, if not for this game week, I think Forest will be difficult, but I think a lot of stuff will run through Saka because it's a difficult game. They tend to go to Saka for that creativity. And then West Ham onwards, I think are some nice games for Arsenal. And I think Saka would be really keen to get in for 13. I think he'll do well against West Ham. Son this week, I think he always manages to find a way to score against Man City. So no issues with going for Son at all this game week. I think he is a fantastic option and would be a great pick. And some of the other guys just to think about, I think Brennan Johnson for me, someone that like I'd look to be getting out of my side. I think he's been picking up really poor positions for Spurs lately. He doesn't really look that involved in the play. I know he keeps scoring goals, but I think that run is going to start coming to an end, especially with Spurs having some trickier games coming up. And I just think that he's not involved enough to be picking up returns throughout the game weeks. I'd look to try and get out of him as a priority to get out of my midfield, and I will be getting rid of him this week most likely, unless I hear late game week news that Saka is not going to play. Bruno Fernandes, I am going to say, having given it a lot of thought this week, I think is a good pick, and I would recommend him as an option, to the shock of everybody listening. I do think he's the only guy that's a locked player in this United team. And I think over the next 2 weeks, you can just have him in your team. And if after those 2 weeks he doesn't perform for you, then look, you can look to get him out and you can use your transfers. You can be attacking. You can go for a Jared Bowen in game week 14. And that's what I sort of thought about recently. And I thought, yeah, I think United have 2 really good fixtures. If you go for Bruno Fernandes, he can come off and really be a differential for you as a pick over the next 2 game weeks. If he doesn't come off in game week 14, West Ham's pictures become really nice. Jared Bowen around the same price point is someone really easy to move Fernandes to. You gain a little bit of money to use elsewhere as well. And I think you have a really nice player in Bowen going forwards. And if Fernandes goes well, you just keep him. So I think Fernandes is a good pick, and I've changed my mind on it. Just it was more on the price. Well, I mean, it was more on United, but also on the price point for him. I just didn't feel like that was a price point where there were good options to move to. But yeah, having looked at some of the fixture swings for United, West Ham, and then maybe even Anthony Gordon becoming an option, I feel a little bit more confident going with Bruno Fernandes. And then my 2 budget midfielder picks would be a Semenyo or a Morgan Rogers. I think they both got great fixture runs. I would go for Semenyo over Rogers. He would be my first choice pick. But yeah, I think both good options going forwards. Would be happy with either of them in my side. And a few people have talked about Matoma. I have some views on Mitoma. I actually think Mitoma is an incredible player and just way better than what his stats would show. And the reason that I think his expected assists and expected goals are so low, just because Brighton don't pass him the ball. Like they just don't pass that way. I don't know why. The Brighton have some like amazing attacking patterns. First time hearing you suggesting Bruno. Yeah, that is true. That is the first time, Foggy. It is quite rare for me to put Bruno as a suggested option just because I could never trust United. But yeah, it just feels like a nice option over the next couple of game weeks. Feels like there are some options to go into from him as well, which makes it a more attractive option when you've got options. And also, he's a lock, right? He's going to play for United in every game. There's going to be no worries with rotation or coming out of the team. Like he's United's best player. He's going to be playing every game. Yeah, I don't expect him to be missing any games over Christmas. So yeah, good old Bruno will actually, you'll see, makes my wildcard team as well. So yeah, get ready to be surprised. Yeah, Karim Matoma. Obviously, I just think he's a good, really like fantastic player. But like I said, I just think Brighton's attacking patterns just don't seem to include him that much. And like when the ball does go out to him, he plays an incredible pass, and like often will get an assist. I like couldn't tell you why the ball doesn't go to him, and I keep watching Brighton to I try and understand it. But like I can't work it out. He just looks like he's in space as well. And he's just incredible. His dribbling is amazing. His passing is amazing. His technical ability is fantastic. And yeah, I just think he's a great player, just underutilized. I think a little bit at Brighton. I think if they do manage to get a little bit more out of him, they'll be even more brilliant going forwards. And I think Brighton are great going forwards as they are. Maybe with João Pedro coming back, maybe there'll be a bit of link up between the two of them. Guess we'll see. Cool, and then we'll flick on to our forwards, and then we'll move on to maybe like a wildcard draft and a little chat, and I'll also have to make the transfers in my team quickly. I know no one really cares that much about my team. You just want to hear who we should be going for. Anyway, forward analysis. Two of the main guys, João Pedro and Wissa. João Pedro, I've got the stats on the right-hand side just because where I pull the data from, which is FBref, it filters out people who haven't played a certain number of minutes. And João Pedro is sort of just under that threshold. What transfers are you making? Do want to hear about your team later? Yeah, cheers, Foggy. I will. I mean, we can talk about it now, really. João Pedro is one of the transfers that I'm considering as a forward option. And the reason being is I think that the strategy going forwards, and generally like what my strategy is as it starts to get towards Christmas, is to start to look to have more like 15 players in your squad to factor in for rotations and people being rested over the like fixture congestion over Christmas. At the beginning of the season, I generally tend to have like one guy that just doesn't exist as a person. And if you look at my team at the moment, and I'll flick it up on the screen, this is what it currently looks like with that's sort of like the 3-5-2 that I'll be playing this week with. On the bench, you got Lewis, Faze, and Jebison. And Jebison is just this, Bournemouth don't even have him in the team anymore. So he's basically like 4.5 million forward fodder. And he'd be somebody that I'd be looking to move to a João Pedro. And at the moment with my team, I sort of have a couple of options for this game week. I've got, I think, 3 million in the bank. Let me check quickly. 3.4 million in the bank. So like I'm obviously looking to get to Saka in the midfield, and he's someone that I would like to have in my team for the fixture run, especially from 13. Probably ideally from this week. I do think he'll do well against Forest. He'll be a key part of Arsenal's play. My vice captain is not on Mbumo, it would be on Palmer. So yeah, my 3 guys that I'm thinking of transferring that you can see highlighted here are Porro, Johnson, and Jefferson, right? And Porro's going to go, and Porro's going to go for Lewis Hall. And really, I should just make that transfer now. I don't know what I'm waiting for. Just sort of thinking about late team news and what could happen, or like, I don't know. I think I was waiting really for like Newcastle and Tottenham press conferences, and no issues with Lewis Hall. So happy to crack on with him. And so then the other move is just whether I go Johnson to Saka or whether I go Jebison to João Pedro. And what's annoying is I was originally going to go Johnson to Saka and I could have just done it straight, but now I'm 0.1 million short of it, so I have to make 2 transfers. So yeah, it would have to be Porro downgrade to a Hall and Johnson up to a Saka. And it's just sort of my consideration is I probably will do the other transfer next week. So it's likely that I will transfer Jefferson out for João Pedro as well. And I would have the money to do that just to make all 3 of those transfers. So my question to myself is, do I think that Saka or João Pedro will score more points this week? And if I'm honest, like I really struggled to make that call. I really struggled to make that call. And my decision is, I know Brighton didn't help by not talking about João Pedro in the press conference. The press, like, what are they doing? Not asking that question. How is he looking? Is he fit to start? Come on, surely. They obviously don't play FPL. Yeah, I think my decision is I'm going to go for Saka just because he's such a key part of the Arsenal team, and I think he's going to play. And I know that there might be people that would advise against not going. I would not go to Hall given Botman and Burn are injured. Hey mate, I like Newcastle. I think they look good. I think Newcastle look good anyway. Plus, I kind of need to go to Lewis Hall because he's 4.4 million. If I go to anyone more expensive than that, I can't afford to bring Saka and João Pedro in. If I'm honest, who I would prefer is probably Luka Dean. Would be like my first choice, but I just don't have the money. And like, if I show my like team on FPL, if I took out Porro, Johnson, and Jebison, and I went Saka and João Pedro, I got 4.4 mil. Can't afford anyone else. I don't know who else I go for around 4.4 mil that would be better than Lewis Hall. I think they've got good fixtures run. Not just this week either. I think Newcastle have got a nice run of games. Palace after Liverpool, and Brentford's not that great, but Leicester, Ipswich, Villa United, Spurs not easy, and then nice little run here to 24. You can rotate Hall out of that as well. Like I'm not planning on playing him in all those game weeks, but I think he's a nice player. 4.4 mil. I don't really know anybody else that I would prefer. And again, I guess that just means he's gonna play. I know Botman and Burn are injured, but he's gonna play. Livermeno other side. Fabian Schär, Eagle or Brighton have good fixtures. Yeah, I do like Brighton's fixtures as well. Just not convinced Eagle is gonna like always be in the side. I'm trying to find someone who's nails. I don't feel confident when 30 comes back. Dunk's fully fit. That Eagle's gonna play. 30's look nice when he's been playing as well, to be honest. He's looked really nice. Beltman. JP. Yeah, be interesting. Yeah, I don't think I can look past Lewis Hall. I just think he's the only guy that good attacking. It's not just on the clean sheets either. Like he's looked good going forward. I actually think Ferdy Kadioglu would have been really nice. If he wasn't injured, I think he would have been really nice. He's looked quite nice going forward for Brighton. I saw him playing that Liverpool game as well. I thought he was really like bombing forwards for them. Yeah, that's my problem. But yeah, I think I'll end up going Lewis Hall, and then it's just a choice between Saka and João Pedro. Video's glitching again. Yeah, sorry guys if there's a bit of poor connection at the moment. I'm trying to get rid of some of the stuff that might be clogging it up. Hopefully that makes it a little bit better. I can see it looks a bit unstable. Yeah, Van Heck as well. I do like Van Heck. I just can't afford the 0.1. I just can't afford the 0.1. That is the problem. And I could have afforded the 0.1 if I'd have like made the transfer a little bit earlier, and I'd have gone João Pedro, but I couldn't take the risk. I think I wanted Saka. And I think I'm going to go Saka. I'm not going to take a -4. I'll just bring João Pedro in next week. My team doesn't really have any major issues. Well, wouldn't say that, but yeah, I think that's what it will look like this week. Hall and Saka come in. I don't mind playing Wood against Arsenal. I think Forest could easily score. Just hedge my bets. If they keep a clean sheet, great. If they score, it's very likely it might be Wood. Here, but try and see if I can make it better, but I can't imagine this is gonna. Just probably a bunch of traffic on my internet at the moment. Is what it is. I've tried to turn off anything that's on Wi-Fi. Yeah, so I think those are my plans for this week. As long as you can hear the audio, then at least if my face is glitching, it's not that important. It's not that good to look at anyway. Yeah, so those are my two choices. I'd probably go with the Saka and Hull, and then I'd look to end up with all three of them going forwards. So that sort of brings me on to the next one that I want to talk about, which is wildcard. And I've got sort of two wildcard teams here to talk through. And obviously, like if you guys have wildcard teams or changes that you want to make to your teams, let me know. Post in the chat. Like I've obviously got a lot more time to answer you guys' questions than some of the major streamers. So this is the place to be if you are struggling with your team decisions. Chuck whatever you need in the chat, and I will answer your questions. I think this is roughly what I would look to go for as a wild card for this week if I was picking. Ignore the green colour, it's just because of I copied it off the previous slide. But yeah, I would probably look for maybe like a Verbruggen in goal and a Fabianski. I think there are some options here with a goalie. Like actually, if you look at Pickford Fabianski, I think Pickford Fabianski has an amazing rotation where there's always a green game week for like the next 12 game weeks in a row. If you rotate them, they just have absolute perfect rotation. Which is pretty crazy considering they have some absolutely horrific games in big bunches. But it just so happens that between the Everton games and the West Ham games, their fixtures match up nicely. So I think there are some options in goal. I don't really like Sanchez. I just think Chelsea concede. I obviously think Brighton concede as well, but I was watching the bonus points video that was out the other day, and I saw Verbruggen had a really nice baseline for Brighton, and if they do keep clean sheets, it is likely that he's going to pick up some bonus points for them rather than a lot of their defenders. I think like maybe a Van Heck was up there with the bonus points, but Verbruggen had a really nice baseline for BPS because he's been making quite a few saves for Brighton, and also like playing passes out from the back and getting the sort of like stats up for pass completion rates and those sort of statistics. So that's why I went for Verbruggen over like a Sanchez. I would say that Pickford's also a nice option, and I wouldn't say no to going for a Pickford. I think the rotation between him and Fabianski is really nice. The only thing that just swayed me to a Verbruggen is I just felt Brighton were a slightly better team, and I think they've like not had a particularly easy fixture run at the moment. And I know they've conceded a lot of goals, but they have played some tough teams, and I think Brighton are a very good team. And I think there is potential for them to suddenly start keeping some clean sheets. Whereas I think Everton and West Ham are basically going to be the worst team most weeks, despite their fixtures. At the back, we got Gabriel, Digne, Hull, Aït-Nouri, and Greaves as a 4 mil. So Greaves is back, training now for Ipswich. I'm pretty sure he's going to start playing again for them. He's just a 4.0 million defender that's playing. And I think that's what you want. You want to try and have 5 defenders that are all playing. I'd rather have the 4 mil, spend the extra 0.1 than have a 3.9 mil fodder. Aït-Nouri, obviously fantastic fixtures, great attacking potential. Lewis Hall, good attacking potential, good fixtures. Digne, good fixtures, great attacking potential. Gabriel, great fixtures. And then form-wise, we're probably looking at maybe Newcastle are the only team there that are like defensively in form, which is probably why I've gone with Lewis Hall in there. The other teams, you're just sort of hoping based off their fixture runs that they'll find form, and then you work in the defender that's in the form that you want, and the rest of the time you probably go for the guy that you think is going to get you the attacking returns or has the best fixture that week. Like I always say, tactics, stats, form, fixture. Those are the 4 main things that you want to be going for. In midfield, we got Fernandes, Salah, Palmer, Saka, and Semenyo. Yes, I do have Bruno Fernandes in my wild card. I think that 4 in the midfield, it looks unreal. Like, if you just exclude like anything you know about FPL, imagine Fernandes, Salah, Palmer, Saka as your midfield. Like, that is unreal. And the fact that you managed to fit them all into an FPL side, if you think of the past seasons, that is insane to think you could get all 4 of them in and still have 0.7 in the bank. Like, that's mental. I mean, you've got a pretty this is a pretty decent team. Like, all 15 of your players are playing. It's not like you've got any fodder. So I think that midfield, it just looks like unreal. Semenyo on the bench, I think he's got some great fixtures. I mean, really, he could be in this week. He could be in for João Pedro. I think that's a sort of toss-up of who you'd start. Yeah, I don't know. I think João Pedro's got a little bit more upside. I think Brighton could score more goals. João Pedro could be involved in more of them. So if Bournemouth score a couple of goals, then you might get one. So I think just more upside for João Pedro for me. And then that front line, Wissa, Isak, João Pedro, man, just João Pedro obviously in great form, Brighton with great fixtures, Wissa in amazing form, Brentford maybe not with the best fixtures, Newcastle, Isak starting to get into form, Newcastle good fixtures. So for me, like all of those are really nice. Tactically, like Wissa, superb IQ is the main guy really for Brentford outside of Mbumo. Just gets into fantastic positions. Everyone's trying to find him. Isak's obviously the main guy for Newcastle. Everything wants to go into him eventually. And João Pedro, as Hurstler says, is the talisman for that Brighton team. Although, like, you've obviously got Welbeck ahead of him playing just behind. Yeah, I just think he's a really nice player. Nice wildcard, very similar to my current wildcard. Just have Kanate instead of Digne and Van Heck for Greaves. Yeah, if you can afford that, those are definitely upgrades. I'd probably rather have Kanate for Digne or for Hall or for Ainuri. I don't know. Not sure who I'd have Kanate over. I do like Dean. Yeah, I'd definitely have Van Heck over Greaves if I could. In fact, maybe I could afford that in this team. But I was just sort of giving myself that 0.7 million to sort of shift around if I needed to upgrade some people. Maybe like a Wissa for a Cunha or something like that. You also got Rogers for Semenyo and Cunha for Isak. Yeah, look, I mean, I would really advise going Isak over Cunha. And I think I spoke about that in the past, is that I just don't think Wolves are a very good side. And I don't think they're going to create a lot of chances, especially against big teams. And I know Cunha's been returning in the last couple of weeks. But like if you look at the goal that he scored and the return that he got, and it's nice, I think my connection just came back to being good. He scored just like a wonder goal basically last week. And then like, yeah, okay, he's creative and might create chances, but how often is that going to happen? Wolves really struggle to keep the ball, to keep possession, to create chances in general. I feel like Newcastle are a much better team, and if you can manage to get Isak in there, I think he'd be much nicer to have on a wild card. I don't know who you need to downgrade to get him, but I would definitely look to try and get an Isak over Acuna. I think he's just a much nicer option. He also gives you a little bit of flexibility in the future if you're looking to move around that price point, a Jackson, a Solanke, etc., or a Watkins, or as on top of that, if you want to go back to Haaland in game week 18 when he has that nice fixture run, and you don't want to play a wild card or something like that, or maybe in like 19 or something when the next wild card comes out, or if you have a wild card still, you're on your wild card. Yeah, so it just gives you a bit of flexibility to be able to do maybe like a Salah, Palmer, or a Saka out and Isak up to a Haaland a little bit more easily. If you do have like a Cunha with João Pedro front line, if you ever do want to go to Haaland, it's going to be really difficult to do that without saving up a bunch of transfers or having a wild card. So it's more for like team logistics and flexibility of your team to be able to move if that wild card doesn't work out. And like I think your wild card's nice, but if it doesn't work out, you want to maybe have a little bit more flexibility in that front line. I'd be looking at maybe an Isak over Acuna. Yeah, but nice, good call. And then I also do have a Haaland wild card for people that are keen to keep Haaland in the team over this run, go against the grain a little bit. I think it could be interesting. Like if City come into some nice form now, Haaland starts banging the goals in, you're going to see a lot of people start to panic. I think personally, I'm quite comfortable without him. You know, if he scores 3 hat tricks in 3 weeks, then well, just is what it is. You're dead in the water. And whoever held him, congratulations. But I feel like a lot of managers would have sold him. And if you do have him, it just gives you a lot of captaincy dilemmas. Because if you got Haaland and Salah and Palmer, for example, these guys at these premium prices are generally like premium prices because they're great captaincy options, and that's what you need to be like working towards. And I think on a wild card and what I've discussed before, like the first thing you should be doing in your wild card is thinking about what your captaincy options are going to be and who the best captains are for each week. I think here, if you look at my sort of captaincy matrix as such for 12 to 20, sort of talked about which guys I think the best captaincy fixtures are. And like Haaland's fixtures start to get a little bit nice from 18 onwards, and I think I'd like to captain him in some of those games, and I might look to bring him back in at that stage. But until then, you can see really like Palmer and Salah almost rotate like pretty nicely each week, other than 13, which is what I want to have Saka for. Although I think Salah against City is not that bad a game. But otherwise, you can see like you could easily pick one of those two for the next 8-9 weeks as your captain. And then for me, then you're like, all right, well, those are definitely premiums that I want in my team. Like they're important to have. And the same way you could say Palmer and Saka, you could rotate between those two as well, really pretty nicely. And then you could have no Salah and go for Haaland. There are a few options for wildcard, and I don't think it's clear what the best strategy is. I really don't think, if you're on a wild card, I don't think the strategy is that clear. Whether you go Haaland or you don't go Haaland, I think it's a lot easier for people who don't have a wild card and they're sort of making transfers. It's just sort of how your team's set up is the way you have to go forwards. Like you're not able to swap or flip flap in between. You've got to pick a route and you go for it. Wildcard, you may be able to set up your team to have a little bit of flexibility, and it might not be the worst thing to have, because I think it could easily go both ways. So yeah, pretty interesting, the wildcard team. I might just quickly have a look at any early team news on my Blue Sky. We're off Twitter. We're onto Blue Sky. Technically, I'm still on Twitter, but I don't really use it anyway. I really only use it to check like early team news. I mean, I'm not really expecting anything, to be honest. Like Chelsea, I think Palmer's like basically a lock. Yeah, not really seeing anything. It's actually a little bit easier on Blue Sky to find team news than it is on Twitter. Twitter's a bit wild. My Blue Sky is a bit more like streamlined. There's not really anything there. I'm not seeing anything. So maybe that is a good call for action to me to actually make my transfers for this week and not forget while I'm on this stream. I think it's going to be Lewis Hall and Bukayo Saka in for Pedro Porro and Johnson. I think Lewis Hall's got to just go in. Just going to have one more look at Brian. He did intrigue me, whoever said that. I don't like Lewis Dunk, really. I don't think Igor's got going to play every week, is he? 3, 4, 5. He's played the last 5. He has played the last 5 games though. He's kind of a nice setup for Brighton. I think I prefer Lewis Hall. I do think I prefer Lewis Hall. I think Dunk comes back in at centre back for Igor. I think he comes back in at centre back. I think it'd be Duncan Van Heck. I think some of the Brighton fans are talking about like him potentially not coming back in because they quite liked Igor and Van Heck. But I think his minutes aren't secure. I want someone with secure minutes. I'd rather go Lewis Hall. And then Saka is obviously like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Mikel Arteta mind games. Gotta love it. Gotta love a bit of Arteta mind games. Keep us guessing. I think I'll go Saka now. I think those are my transfers. Not going to find out anything before the deadline. I think also the fact that they sort of moved the FPL deadline like a little bit earlier, like now it's an hour and a half rather than an hour. It's a bit sneaky. Can't find out any late team news. Probably good for any Arsenal early kickoffs because Arteta's always trying to wreck you. All right, we've done it. Confirmed. Hall and Saka, in they go. That's my team. Captain Salah, vice captain Palmer. Brentford, good chance of clean sheet. Guardiola, let's hope he scores. Gabriel, possible clean sheet. Hall, possible clean sheet. Goals, 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 maybe goals. Please get me some goals, Watkins. Watkins is someone that I'm thinking of selling, actually, going forwards. I know his fixtures look nice, and he's like a really nice differential for me. I've had him since the start of the season because I think he's so crucial to Villa, and I think he's like just a sensational player. And like that's such a nice fixture round. Well, I mean, like maybe the next 4 are nice, and then Forest City, Newcastle, probably not that nice. But then even after that, like, that's nice. Like, I don't really want to sell him. Kind of want to go. I'd like to go to like. I know this is crazy. What I'm going to say. I'd like to go to Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes and João Pedro. And I've got to find 1 million somewhere. I don't know. I'm going to find that million. The only place I'm going to find that million is Watkins. Maybe Guardiola. Maybe Guardiola goes to Luka D. That's actually alright. Don't mind that. Or Canate. I bought Canate. No, he's 5.4 only. Oops. Yeah. That's the cool. Alright, anyway. Enough of my team. You guys probably don't care about that. Sorry, I'm kind of stuck on like maybe this actually looks like quite a nice team. Chris Wood out for Wissa. Can I get to that team? How many transfers do I need to make? 4. Yeah, it's probably not. Probably Fernandes. It's not gonna. Probably there's no point making that either. So what are the transfers that I just made? Just Wissa. Worcester for Wood actually makes me money. Yeah, that's probably, yeah, Worcester for Wood. I don't know. I like Chris Wood. I'm going to hold him for Ipswich. Maybe I'll move him 14. I'll save a couple of transfers. Maybe move like a Wood and Bowen or something in 14 from Boomo, because they still have a nice fixture next week as well. Yeah, and then if I go Worcester and Bowen, that's nice, because I don't want 2 Brentfords. That would be a bit annoying. Yeah, hopefully you guys aren't getting any buffering, because it keeps telling me that there are some issues on stream. But yeah, I'll sort this out for the next stream if it is bad for you guys. Hopefully no one's mentioned it's too bad. Yeah, so I think that's probably what I'm looking. I think maybe 14. I'd look to, this is probably where I'd look to get to for 14. And then I'm probably going to want to try and roll some transfers to 18 to potentially look to get Haaland back in. And in 18, if I was to get Haaland, I'd be looking at maybe a Watkins into a Haaland. And then, yeah, where do I find that 5.8? What are Cole's fixtures from 18? Oh, they're still nice. Salah. Oh, they're also still nice. Saka. It's got to be one of these guys. Yeah, it's tough to come out with, really. Probably Saka. If I came out of Saka, what am I looking like? 4.3. Ooh, yuck. I'd probably have to come out of Guardiola as well. It'd probably be something like this. Semenyo. Or even by that time, it's like post-Christmas. When's 18? Or is that mid-Christmas? It's not too bad. Those 3. Just 3 game weeks. I can maybe afford to just chuck like a... I wonder if there are any 4.3 million midfielders. I doubt it. 4.4. No. Yeah, so I'd have to make another transfer anyway, so probably by that point I'd consider getting rid of Guardiola. And then maybe I'd go like Semenyo. What are his fixtures from 18 like? Palace, Fulham, Everton, Chelsea, Newcastle, Forest, Liverpool. They're not great, to be honest. Smith Rowe, maybe. Yeah, Smith Rowe's nice. Look at those fixtures from 18. That's pretty nice. So come in here for Smith Rowe, and then I've got 4.6 for the defender. I can go. I mean, that maybe even leaves me like double Fulham. Robinson just out of price range. Maybe it'd be an Anderson. Maybe I'd have to go to like an Anderson. And then that's sort of how I'd sort of move my team, shift my team over the next few weeks. That's 6 transfers more that I would need to make over the next 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 game weeks. That's perfect. That's probably where I'd like to end up. Obviously, Rico Lewis is a bit of an issue as well, but he can be dealt with like the week after that. If I can play 3-4-3 that week, and then just, you've got Faze, Anderson, Hall. 2 of them are going to play. Rico is an issue that week. But otherwise, like, I like Rico. He's 4.6 mil. Like, man, I mean, he's obviously more than that for you guys now, probably 4.8. I think I got him at 4.5. Yeah, I think I've had him since the start of the season, to be honest. He's been really good. I've had, like, I don't have any of the issues that any of the other people have been talking about. He's got me clean sheet, assist, clean sheet. If we look at points for defenders, he's on the first page. He's on the first page. He's right up there with Kirkes. People are talking about getting Kirkes in. And he's playing for Man City, who have defended poorly this season, haven't kept that many clean sheets. So if they start defending better, and he's already on 30, like, surely they're going to come out better than. Look, he's on the same. Like everyone's talking about Hall, Kirkes, 8 Nuri. He's like 6 points off them. It's not far. Not big. All he needs is 1 or 2 returns. He could definitely pull in. I think that's the strategy. I think that's the optimal strategy going forwards over the next few game weeks, is to look to try and sort of come back and get Haaland in. And I think this is the sort of team that, like, this would be my wild card team that I would look at. Yeah, that's probably my ideal wildcard team. Sorry, I think the video's having some problems at the moment. I'll try and fix this issue next week. Yeah, so I think we got to the sort of forward analysis page as well previously before we took a stop. Hang on, I just need to quickly bring in Johnson or Isaac for Wood. Johnson. Bring in Johnson or Isaac for Wood. I'm assuming you meant someone like João Pedro, not Johnson. But anyway, Isaac for Wood. Yeah, I mean, if you have the money, Isaac for Wood would be lovely at this stage. I think Chris Wood's been awesome, to be honest. Like, I think he's been great for Forest for a while. I just think Forest running into a little bit tougher fixtures going forwards. Like, if you look, this is the correct slide for this discussion. If you're looking at Chris Wood, you can see he's got Arsenal, Ipswich, Man City, Man United, right? Ipswich obviously being a nice game, but apart from that, not ideal. Sorry. Yeah, apart from that, not ideal. Really, the fixtures. Whereas Isak's got West Ham, Palace, Liverpool, Brentford. West Ham, yeah. Well, I think Isak for me would be definitely who I would be looking to go for. I don't know, Herman. Did you mean John? Who did you mean instead of Johnson? Did you mean Jackson? Nicholas Jackson? If you did mean Nicholas Jackson, same sort of situation. Jackson, okay. Yeah, so same sort of situation as Isak, I guess. I think they both have good fixture runs. I'd probably prefer both of them. It's just the money. Like, they're just obviously much more expensive. If you don't have a problem with budget, yeah, I would move. I would move for them now. Yeah, I would move for both of them. I mean, I would probably still say I would prefer a João Pedro or a Wissa. No, maybe not. No, if you have the money, I'd go Isak. If you have the money, I'd go Isak. I think nice fixture around, nailed in that Newcastle side. Probably not going to be rotated that much. Obviously, Nicholas Jackson on those 4 yellows as well at the moment, might miss a game. If I were him, I'd be waiting till game week 17, just before Christmas, and then I'd just chuck in a wild tackle and just be at home for Christmas Day or Boxing Day. What day is Chelsea's game? 27th. Yeah, definitely. He's definitely throwing in a wild tackle on the 23rd. I think that's the last week as well. I think it's till game week 17, and then after that, the yellow cards get reset. So he probably just chucks in a wild tackle on the 17th and then's at home for Christmas. Beautiful. Fulham as well. It's not that easy a game. Salah or Fernandes as captain. You're killing me. You're killing me, Tiger and Guna. Good to see you though, mate. How can I do this? How can I say Fernandes captain? It's gonna ruin my respectability in the world. Honestly, that's Salah. Don't think too much about it. Salah. I think like Bednarek and Ramsdale both being out for Southampton is actually like going to be a really big problem for them. I think I was saying earlier, like the way they play out from the back, surely not Bruno. Yeah, foggy day, surely not Bruno. Look, I actually don't think Bruno's a bad captain this week. I think Ipswich are very poor defensively, but yeah, you can't captain him over Salah this week. I don't think. I mean, if you can, you're a much braver guy than I am, Tiger and Guna. There's no way I could do that. But I have said specifically, I think Bruno is a good pick now. So I think that's enough boldness for me for 1 week. No, I think Salah's a really nice captaincy pick. I think Southampton playing out from the back at the moment is like if they don't have players that have been playing in Premier League, like in these sort of like against teams who really have a nice high press, and they're not comfortable on the ball. Like I think Bednarek was like really starting to get into a rhythm playing with the other sort of centre backs and Keek and Ramsdale, and like they understood the positioning that they needed to be in. Now with McCarthy coming in, and I'm not sure who's going to play at the back instead of Bednarek. I actually don't know who's going to come in. Stevens, probably Jack Stevens. No, he's right. I have Fernandes, but I'll do Salah. Yeah, you can blame me if you're wrong. You can blame me. I'll take the pain. I just think he's a better option. I think I honestly think Fernandes could score against Ipswich, but like I still think there's a little bit of an unknown where he's going to play. Like he might play like in that pivot in the midfield. I don't think that'll be the best place for him. I don't like. I think if he does play there, United will struggle a little bit defensively. Like again, probably in transition. Yeah, it's just going to be really. I think that United game's gonna. I'm sure I'll do some good content in the week on the tactical analysis on that United game. Fernandes in game week 11 collected 34 from him. Yeah, mate, that's a good call from you. That's a much better call than I made. I mean, Salah got 28 in 11, so probably wasn't too much difference between them. But yeah, I wish I had Fernandes in 11 to be honest. And he just didn't cross my mind as someone that I thought would get that many points. But yeah, maybe United have just got a little bit of Ten Hag's gone, a bit of weight off the shoulders. Like the players are playing with a little bit more freedom. Fernandes is sort of getting back into those positions that he started maybe the season, getting into some nice positions. Like I know he's playing number 9 in the beginning of the season, but he got into some much nicer positions than the last 4 or 5 games for United. So yeah, hopefully that continues under Amorim and United start to play better and really get up the table. I think there is a good chance that he sort of fixes a lot of issues that they've had, managed to drag them up the table. Where are we at, guys? 9:30. Any team news on the Chelsea stuff? Also, just a reminder, guys, if you're enjoying my content, there's probably a subscribe button somewhere there. Nice little red subscribe button. Please subscribe, really help the channel. I'm trying to get my way up to 100 subscribers at the moment. And it'd be great if we could maybe hit this through this live stream. Maybe through this live stream. I don't know what we're on, how many we've pulled in. Or even like just during this week, it would be nice to like move up through the hundreds. Obviously my target is up at 500, but yeah, I'm sure we got a little bit of time to go before we hit that. But yeah, we'd appreciate if you click subscribe if you're enjoying the content. Really help me to keep putting together some good content for you guys. Looking on Blue Sky for some FPL team news. I am not seeing any. Latest. Anything? No. Team news, not team reveals. No one cares about your team reveals. No one cares about my team reveals. We just care about Chelsea Leicester team reveals. No. Nothing floating out there. There have been some really interesting work. I've pressed the like button. Thanks, Tyron Guna. Yeah, guys, like as well if you can. That'd be great. Appreciate it. Obviously, get us a bit more viewership for the stream. Can't compete with these big streamers, but maybe one day we'll pull up there once they start seeing great analysis. No, it's not looking like there's much team news floating around at the moment. I'm not really expecting anything. I think now they've pushed the deadline a little bit. It's a little bit more difficult to see stuff. Nope. Bunch of fake stuff out there. There's a lot of fake stuff that people post. Yeah, no, nothing really. Maybe we'll just go back and just one last ping through the injury updates, so you guys all do know the people that I have been confirmed as out. Ramsdale and Bednarek for Southampton. Leicester, Vardy and Ayew are doubts. My view is that they will be out based off what Steve Cooper was saying. Didn't look that confident, to be honest, that they would be playing. Fatawu out with an ACL, I think, for the season. Buonanotte picked up his 5th yellow, so will also be out. Brentford and Buemo's in. So is Wissa. Both fit to play. Same for Bournemouth. Semenyo and Kirkes both fit to play. Eze out for Palace. He did say again that he was fit. And like he wanted to play, but it was a managerial decision from Ollie Glasner to keep him out of the side. Trying to sort of make sure that he stays fit and is in for next week. And then Villa missing a lot of key players: Konsa, Ramsey, Inanna, Kamara, all out. Matty Cash available though, which is good, and we'll chat a bit more about Villa as well. Man City, Ake, Akanji, Stones in training, potentially available. Kovacic out for 3 weeks to a month. Might mean that either Lewis or a Stones plays in that role. Ruben Diaz still out as well. I should have put Diaz. Arteta says Trossard okay. Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice had their first partial training session today, but then he followed that up with like so very good as well, which made me think that they're probably okay, and like he just sort of slipped up. Um, like I said, I think it's an important game for Arsenal. I think Forest is a difficult game, and I think they're going to need Bukayo Saka to break down the defense. So I think he will play. And to put my money where my mouth is, I just transferred in Saka for Brennan Johnson. So if he doesn't play, I'm going to be crying tonight, as well as wrong. Ben White out long term, roughly like at least 8 weeks. So likely that Timber's going to be playing quite a lot of those games. Tierney and Tomiyasu still out. Calafiori trained and will be in the squad, but not guaranteed to be starting. Predicted Arsenal back four is probably going to be Calafiori left back, Timber right back, and then Gabriel Saliba in the middle. Other options I would say Zinchenko is obviously there, and that's somebody thing that I think like he could play left back, like Calafiori right back. Tomiyasu, obviously, when he comes back, probably in a couple of weeks, might also take some minutes from like a Timber or a Calafiori, etc. So there is potential for some rotation in that Arsenal fullback slot once people start coming back from the injuries. So I don't think Timber's like a lock in the team long term, but I do think he'll obviously get a lot more minutes at the moment, and he's probably like the favoured right back, I would say. So I think he'll start the majority of games. But if you want someone locked, go for a Saliba or a Gabriel 6 or 6.1. It's just an extra 0.5. If you can't afford the 0.5, then go to Timber, and hopefully you've got some good coverage on your bench. Trent not trained. He's not going to play. He didn't say that he won't play, but like he won't play. Jota's still out. Elliott's still out. Chiesa's still out. Alisson's still out. Van Dijk's fine. Alisson's been training in with the goalkeeper training, but he hasn't been in full squad training. So he is likely to be back, I would say, maybe next week. Chelsea expect Palmer and Colwill to play. Maresca said overall for sure they are much better. Palmer's also been training with Chelsea this week, so if last week against Arsenal he hadn't trained really until up until the day. So the fact that he's been training this week, he's definitely going to be playing. Brighton, 0 comments on João Pedro, which was really annoying and sort of fed into my not making the João Pedro transfer yet this week. I think he's probably likely to start. My view is like Hertzler thinks of him as a talisman and like wants him to start. I don't know whether like because he only got 21 minutes last week, and also Reuters like obviously their record signing and been playing really well. Maybe they ease him back in a little bit slowly, and he comes on for I don't know, half time, 30 minutes, 40 minutes this week. So just give me one more week. I'm going to bring João Pedro next week, pretty much almost certain. So let's just wait and see. If he starts and doesn't get injured, he's straight in my team, really. Dunk back in training. Kadioglu not going to be fit. Didn't play for Turkey. Not going to be fit this week. Spurs, Andron Cooley, nothing major. He's all right. Still a bunch of injuries though. Richarlison, Van der Ven, Bentancur suspended for his comments, and Romero is sort of being given a rest. He's got a few niggles, and he's just recently had the birth of his daughter, so I think Andrew's just being nice to him, really. He probably could have played through the pain, but they were like, now's a good time to give you that week off, spend some time with your daughter, get rest up, and feel better. Yeah, so those are the main team news. I think the key guys with a lot of injuries, obviously Villa and Spurs. And I guess we did this little deep dive on Villa this week to talk about the issues that they've had, and how like Emery's going to have to fix a couple of things going forwards. And so what we were talking about was at the moment in the midfield in like the central areas, like I'll tell you what, if you look at this picture, which is from the Villa Spurs game a couple of weeks ago, and this is like pretty much sums up sort of what we're like a lot of the things that we're talking about. I can't remember if it was Tielemans actually that played the ball to Watkins. If it was, like even more so. make my point. But I think it might be an Nana. But yeah, basically like this season they obviously lost Douglas Luiz to Juventus, and Boubacar Kamara has been injured, so they were their two like central midfielders. And like the way that Villa played with those guys last year is Kamara dropped into the back two to make like a back three when they were on the ball to pick up the ball and be able to like spread the play and move the ball around and keep possession a bit better. Konsa was also playing in that centre back position, and he's actually very good on the ball. So they were able to sort of play out from the back nicely, like much more nicely, because they had those sort of more technical, better technical ability players. So Konsa sort of fed those balls around. Konsa and Kamara obviously fed those balls around the Villa back four. Also Douglas Luiz, who played a lot of sideways forwards, like simple passes and not sort of like more extravagant plays on the ball. This obviously made Villa retain the ball a bit better, keep possession better. And this year with like a Tielemans and a Nana in there, they've played a lot more like offensive, like attacking through the lines passes, trying to be more creative, but like move the ball around a little bit less. So a bit faster in the build up. And that hasn't improved the attacking output for Villa, but has made them concede possession a bit more and be more vulnerable to counter attacks. And as you see in this picture, like this big red space in the middle, once Morgan Rogers come off and Villa start chasing games, and they've got Duran at the bottom there and Watkins at the top, it leaves that really big space in midfield. And when you've got Tielemans like going for those killer passes and Nana maybe going for some more killer passes than a Douglas Luiz and a Kamara, and Villa give the ball away, people are able to attack and counter-attack into that space. And like just after this, Tottenham won the ball, went straight into that space. It went to Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson, Solanke, goal. And like Spurs then constantly drove through that gap and scored and turned it around. I think here it was either 1-1. I think it was 1-1 at this point, maybe 2-1. And then obviously turned it around and won 4-1 in that game. So they left that sort of big hole, and that's something for Emery to go forward, sort of work on with their midfield. Anyway, we talked about this before, so we won't crack on. Just sort of, if anybody wasn't about for that part of the stream. And I think the one thing that I wanted to finish up with was obviously our forward analysis, which we didn't get to the end of. So I think like my key guys from this front line and who I'd be looking at going forward over the next few weeks. Definitely Alexander Isak, definitely João Pedro, definitely Wissa. I think for me, those three are probably the three guys that stand out the most, especially over the next few weeks. I would say Isak and Pedro are the top two. Wissa over the next couple of weeks, but I also like Wissa just as an asset long term. But because he's at a similar price point for João Pedro, those of you that don't have a lot of transfers, I would probably go for João Pedro first. If you're not on like a wild card and you're looking for that wild card, the wild card team. Erling Haaland, obviously, not the greatest fixture run over the next few weeks. Tottenham, Liverpool, Forest. I think Tottenham is fixture that suits him. But yeah, I just think they're obviously a good side. Liverpool, good side. Forest, defensively, a good side. Not ideal fixtures for someone who you really need to score at least one, if not two, in the games to justify his price tag. And for him to get the bonus points, really. Nicholas Jackson, I think, is a really good option. I think he's a very good option if you don't have Palmer in your side, because I'm just like I've said before, like I like to spread the risk in my team. That's why I don't like to like triple up on defenders. Generally, unless they're a big team, I don't like to double up on defence, just because the consistency of clean sheets is not so much in the smaller teams historically. It's more like if you're looking for attacking returns for those guys and they have an amazing fixture run, then maybe. Otherwise, I generally like to spread the risk across the defense. Same way in the offense, I feel the same way. Like I don't really like to double up on players unless it's A, a fantastic fixture run, and B, the team scores tons of goals a game. Maybe back in like the United days when they were scoring a lot of goals, I would have like a a Rooney and a Van Persie or something like that, like almost double up on some of those players. If Liverpool assets were easier to predict, I'm sure we'd all have double ups on their players, like a Diaz and Salah, for example, but they get rotated so much that it's so difficult. And then, like previously in the past, the Mane and Salah were priced at such a high price point that you basically had to choose who you wanted to go for between the two of them, which was quite difficult at the time. Also, guys, just a reminder, 14 minutes, I think, now till the deadline. So if you haven't made your transfers, stop listening to me and make them right now. Actually, listen to me and make the transfers at the same time. It's good. I'm enjoying the viewership. But yeah, not long to go now to the deadline. So lock in those transfers. Make sure you've got the correct captain. Make sure you've got the correct vice captain. Make sure you got the correct bench order. If you've got any questions, get them in the chat for me now. I'll make sure I answer all of them up until the last minute to the deadline, or maybe 2 minutes to the deadline, because normally it breaks a minute before. So 2 minutes to the deadline, and then you've got to just get everything locked down. So comments in the chat now if you do have any final questions. And then, yeah, we'll quickly take a look, finish off with this forward analysis, and then we'll take a look at that final wildcard team one more time, and then we will most likely be done. I might stick around for a little bit to just check on team news and see if there's anything, but likely once we get to 10, I'll probably finish up. Let me just have a look if there is any team news at the moment. Yeah, chuck whatever you've got in the chat if you have questions. Doesn't look like much for team news at the moment. Yeah, I don't think anything's going to come through for team news either, to be honest. But I am not seeing anything coming up on here. Amelia, what's your wildcard team? Welbeck or João Pedro? Ooh, what's my wildcard team? All right, I was going to do that in a sec, but let's flick onto that for you now. I got two wildcard teams. So this is my non-Haaland wildcard team. I'm not on wildcard team this week, but this is what I would do. I put quite a bit of thought into where I would go with it. I got a couple of maybe changes depending on your team that would be potentials to go for. But I sort of gone with a rotation of Verbruggen and Fabianski in goal. Previously, I thought about like Pickford and Fabianski. They have a really nice rotation, and I'll just quickly put it up. I'll put their rotation up for you so you can see it. Let's just flick it up. So you see Pickford, 15, 16, 17, 18, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, City. 3 games before that, nice. 3 games after that, not too bad. But from 15 to 18 has really terrible games. And then you look at Fabianski, and 15, 16, 17, 18, Wolves, Bournemouth, Brighton, Southampton, basically perfect games. And then after that, he has his difficult games. At 12 and 13, he has his difficult games. So it just works really nicely that Everton seem to have really nice games over that period. and and West Ham have really nice games over the other period. And basically up until game week 20, 22, 23, 24, 25 is Palace. Really up until game week 26, they just rotate so nicely. Even like Man United, Brentford, Wolves, West Ham, that's not too bad till 29. Yeah, look at this: Everton, Wolves, Bournemouth. Like until 31, really, you just got great. It's just a great rotation. I think all the way to the end of the season, they rotate almost perfectly. They really do. You've got no like tough games until till the end of the season. You don't have any fours or fives. So yeah, they have like a perfect rotation really. So that's why they were in my wildcard originally. I did decide to go for Verbruggen. Just I thought Brighton were a better team, and I felt like Brighton have actually like not had the easiest fixtures over the last 11 game weeks, and they've still managed to sort of managed to get good results. They haven't managed to keep clean sheets, but or well, that's not true. They have kept some clean sheets, but um, they've still managed to get good results over that period. And I think that now they have a good fixture run, they might be able to also keep some clean sheets over that period of time. And I also think Verbruggen has a really nice baseline for bonus points. So if they do keep a clean sheet, he's likely to actually pick up some bonus points, including some of the saves he makes. So that's my defence. And then midfield, Gabriel, Digne, Hall, Ait-Nouri, Greaves. I just think those are the three best sort of 4.5-ish million midfielders, defenders at the moment. And the Arsenal fixture run's just so nice that I wanted to have them in there. And then yeah, Gabriel just purely for Arsenal's fixture run. I'd like to have in there. Which need unlocked. Yeah, I think it's a really nice fixture run for again, like for Villa, for Wolves, for Newcastle, all have nice fixtures as well. So it'd be nice to have them in there. Jackson over. Yeah, okay, maybe I'll just quickly answer your question as well. So Welbeck or João Pedro? I'll go João Pedro. Just because I think he's the talisman. I think this week, if you have Welbeck, maybe don't transfer to a João Pedro unless you're on a wild card. I think wait for next week because there is a potential that he sort of gets eased back in with like 45 minutes or like 30 minutes this week. But my guess is that he starts. But yeah, I didn't go for him this week. I'm going to go for him next week just because I thought there was a bit of potential. And Jackson over Isak depends on whether you have Palmer or not. For this wildcard team, I prefer Isak. I didn't want to double up on Chelsea. I don't think they're going to score that many goals and it's worth it. Plus, I think Isak's in nice form in a Newcastle team with also nice fixtures, and he's also their key guy, also on penalties, whereas Jackson is not and Palmer is. So that's probably my call: Isak over Jackson, João Pedro over Welbeck. But I do like Welbeck as well, and if you have the money, I think either could be good, but obviously, again, João Pedro also on penalties. And at 5.5 mil is just such a nice price point. And then quickly for you, Amelia, as well, if you wanted to see, this is my Haaland wild card. Guys, 6 minutes to go to deadline. Please make sure you confirm all your last minute transfers, captaincies, vice captaincies. Panic subscribe to my stream, to my channel. And yeah, just make sure you get everything locked in before the deadline. And any last questions, like Amelia getting me shaking, I will answer up until the last 2 minutes, and then you'll need to make sure you lock your teams in. So this is my Haaland wildcard team. Similar goalkeeper, similar defence. The midfield includes old mate Bruno Fernandes again. Basically, I think the same midfield, but Salah out for Rodgers. And that's just because I think Palmer and Saka captaincy is really nice over that period of time as well. If you look at the captaincy run over the next few weeks, you can see Palmer and Saka. You can also just sort of captain them all the way through on the various different weeks. And if you've got Haaland in there, you can captain him in 15. So the captaincy sort of works without Salah and with Salah. So it's that sort of Salah versus Haaland call again. I felt like the team just didn't quite have the right balance having both of them, but you could do a Haaland and Salah draft if you wanted to. This is just what I preferred. If I was going to go for Haaland, I thought maybe this is the way to go. I can still get a really nice team in around him. So yeah, and then up front, similar again. I've got Whistler and João Pedro, and basically Haaland just replacing Isak in that middle bit. So it's really just a Haaland to Isak to Haaland, and Salah to Rodgers is really the only changes that is made in that team between the drafts. So yeah, that's what I go for, guys. 4 minutes to deadline. Get your teams locked in. I'm going to search around for some late team news and see if anything is in there. Anything from you guys? Please put in the chat now. Just feel like there's not going to be anything over these. It's just too early now. Nice, thanks for the speed. No worries, Amelia. Got him over the line just in time for you. 3 minutes, guys. Lock your teams in. Lock your teams in. We're almost there. No one else has got any fancy team news either, apparently. No, it looks like we're almost over the line, guys. We are almost over the line. No to a Salah triple captain. I know no one asked, but I don't think it's the way to go. I just got a text message about it from one of my mates. 2 minutes left. All right, last question if you've got one. If not, we're done. Lock your teams, lock your captains, lock your vice captains. Let's hope Saka starts. And let's look forward to a very, very interesting. Your ranking is a very lucky number. Yeah. Thanks, Foggy. My it is actually. I'm 888k at the moment. Pretty crazy. Actually 888898. Unbelievably lucky. So let's hope for some good luck this week. 1 minute, guys. That's it. Lock it in now. Otherwise, the site could crash. In fact, if I look at the site, it might have already crashed. No, it's still up. 1 minute. 1 minute to go. Lock in your teams. I better check my team quickly. Need last minute switches. Stressful this week. It's going to be stressful. Just got to hope for the best. Hope for the best. Midfield looks nice. Midfield looks nice. Watkins needs to do something this week. Otherwise, I'm going to be very upset with him. And hopefully Brentford can keep a clean sheet for once in their life. That's it, guys. 10 o'clock. The deadline has passed. I hope all your teams are in. And if If I click, is it updating? No, still letting me do stuff. It's nice of it. Deadline hasn't passed. What's going on? Quick, last minute changes, you can get them in. FPL have messed it up. They're giving you some extra time. Maybe they'll let me put João Pedro in this week for free. So a little look. Good luck, all. Yeah, good luck to you too, Fogs. Nah, 4 points there, and let me do. I'm not going to do that. Thought they might have really messed it up. Let's refresh, see if it. Wow, they're really giving us some extra time this game week. We're not locked out at all. That's wild. Got the extra 1 minute, guys, this week. Absolute result from FPL. Any last minute changes now? Yeah, over the line. Or maybe let's check for some late team news. Something sneaks over the line for us. Be great if someone did a 10:01 transfer to bag them points. Neto may not play. Latest team news. Wow. That is the only thing I've heard if any of you are looking for Neto. Not confirmed, but he's in no. Ooh. No, not confirmed. I don't know. I don't think that's legit. No concrete news. No, I don't think that's legit. Not a reliable source. Not a reliable source, but we'll see whether he is in or not. That's it. Game's updating. We're over the line. Good luck, everyone. I hope you have a great game week 12. And yeah, please subscribe to the channel for some good content coming up this week. Should be able to put out a few videos for you guys. I think we got a Tuesday game this week, so I don't know. Maybe I'll put one out a bit early, do like an early